Chapter 669. Autumn was gradually approaching, and Swallow Dock was now a bit chilly. The leaves of the locust trees in the yard were still lush, but they were dazzling yellow. The sunlight, which was not so hot, shone on these yellow leaves, making them more golden, and even the edge of the leaves seemed to leak light. Most of the people in the room were wearing unlined shirts, which didn't make people feel cold. For martial arts practitioners like them, a little cold wind couldn't hurt them at all. Even in winter, it was easy for them to swim naked. Yi was the weakest, but she also had some martial arts foundation. At this time, she didn't show any abnormality. She had a good relationship with her sister Yi Ro since childhood, and she had always regarded Yi Ro as her idol. Therefore, Yi Ro's position was her position, and her position had always changed with Yi Ro's position. When she just learned that Sister Ro and Fang Yen were in love, she rejected it in her heart, and even questioned Sister Ro's choice to her face. She thought that Fang Yen didn't deserve Sister Ro. As for who could deserve Sister Ro, she didn't have a specific name or outline in her mind. She just thought that it should be someone more excellent and powerful than Fang Yen. There were many talents in Yanjing City, and heroes were like carps crossing the river. Why did she have to choose a husband in Swallow Dock? But Sister Ro was willing to endure it, and she could only accept it. Therefore, from last night to this morning, she had been trying to say a few words for Fang Yen. Although she knew that no one would listen to her words, and it probably wouldn't have a good effect. After hearing what Fang Yen said, she didn't get angry like the Yi family, but was a little moved. A sincere man, a stubborn man, a man who wouldn't give up easily. Wasn't such a man what women longed for and pursued? In the autumn morning light, in the backyard of the Yi family, where insects and birds wandered freely, the man was slowly saying something on his mind. I know you won't like what I said, and you will even be very angry. But it's really from the bottom of my heart. I also know that no matter what I say, you won't agree to let Yi Ro marry me. Using words to move people is meaningless in your eyes. At this point in time, you won't be thinking about love or not. To you, this is just a trivial matter. The first thing you consider is that your family will lose a heavenly Tao expert. You will imagine it as Mo1, or a divine dragon that can injure Mo1. They are only at the heavenly Tao realm. If Yi Gentle succeeds in ascending the heavenly Tao, she will be a figure like them. Such a person can dominate the 9 heavens and soar tens of thousands of kilometers. How much influence and benefits can she bring to the Yi family? Fang Yen was lying on the mahogany bed near the window. This was Yi Fengsheng's bed. In the past, when Fang Yen came to find Yi Fengsheng, he would often roll around on this bed. But I care. I like Yi Ruru, so I must marry her. You will object. You will object vehemently, but I will also find ways to get her. We may elope, or we may set up a table outside, light a pair of candles, and get married. That's what couples in feudal society would do when they are forced to do. Now it's a legal society. Yi Ro and I are both adults. We will bring our ID cards to Beijing, or to any government office. We can legally become husband and wife for only 9 yuan. If you dare to break us up, you will be breaking the law. I will sue you. We have known each other for so long. You must not think that I am a lecher. But if I have no choice, I will not hesitate to coax you with flowery words. Drinking or drugging is also possible. I have to find a way to do it. I want Yi Ro to be my woman. I want Yi Ro to give birth to our child. I want Yi Ro to be with me. It's better for you to be angry than for me to sulk. It's better for outsiders to scold me for being shameless than to scold myself for being useless. Look, I can also be like you, a man who will do anything. I won't talk back if you scold me. It's natural for me to suffer a little grievance if I want to abduct someone else's girl. If you hit me, I will naturally dodge or fight back, because I know you may really kill me. I don't want to die. If I marry Yi Ro, I don't want to die. Everyone present was stunned. No one would have thought that he would be so direct with his words, and that he would be so blatant about it. The men of the Yi family were either angry, sarcastic, or staring at him with deep eyes. Watching him speak his mind could also be regarded as another form of declaration of war. This was probably the meaning of Fang Yan's vow to marry Yi Rou. I want to tell you that I will definitely marry Yi Rou. Fang Yan looked at the people in front of the bed and said. His tone was calm, but there was unshakable firmness in his words. But I also want to do it beautifully, so that you will feel less resentful. At least, don't let Rou be in such a dilemma. Although Rou looks cold, she values affection the most in her heart. She values the love between us, and she values the affection between you more. We can fight and scold each other unscrupulously, but what about Rou? She doesn't want to give up our feelings, she doesn't want to disappoint your affection, so she can only be in a dilemma in the middle. I don't want Rou to be in a dilemma. Fang Yan looked at Yi Daowen and Yi Daoling and said, so, today, I will tell you my thoughts and what I want to do. I want to marry Yi Rou, and what do you want me to do? Marry into her family. Yi Daowen gritted his teeth and said. Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, it seems that I am in a dilemma now. Let's not be changed by him. Someone reminded him. He hasn't confessed whether he deliberately destroyed Sister Rou's breakthrough. How can I prove that I didn't mean it? Fang Yan looked at the young man and asked. When Rou wakes up, won't everything be revealed? What if Sister Rou is biased? The man retorted unwillingly. Do you want to force him to death? A cold voice sounded behind them. Everyone turned around and saw Yi Rou in black standing behind them, coldly glancing at the people in the room. Her face was pale, her eyes were lifeless, and she had to rely on the support of a young maid even to stand. The failure of this breakthrough really had a great impact on Yi Rou. Rou, you're awake? Yi Daowen hurried over. After all, she was his daughter, and as a father, he was very concerned. Yi Daoling walked over, reached out his hand to feel Yi Rou's wrist, and said in a deep voice, your pulse is weak, and your breath is difficult to find. It may be caused by excessive fatigue. Why don't you have a good rest when you wake up? What are you doing here? Yi Rou's gaze passed through the crowd and met the eyes of Fang Yan, who was sitting on the bed. Yi Rou was fine, and Fang Yan grinned. Fang Yan was fine, and Yi Rou also chuckled. One smiled openly, and the other smiled gently. This smile was particularly dazzling in the eyes of many people. He is my savior. Yi Rou said aloud. Rou? Yi Daowen raised an eyebrow and said, what happened at the time? You can't talk nonsense about this kind of thing. Yi Daowen was worried that in order to protect Fang Yan, Yi Rou would deliberately say something beneficial to Fang Yan. If he is a narrow-minded person. Yi Rou's gaze was still on Fang Yan, but she answered her father's question, do you think I will like him? Yi Daoling looked at his elder brother, Yi Daowen, and said with a smile, Rou, don't blame your father. He is also worried about you. There are some things you may not be clear about. At that time, it was the critical moment of your seclusion. Fang Yan broke the door, and I even fought with him. You also know the attitude of the family towards your seclusion. Everyone was careful, for fear of affecting you. So, Fang Yan barged in so casually. We were worried that he would disturb your state of mind, but it didn't mean that he had any bad intentions. We were protecting you. Fang Yan also said it was to protect you, but the result was. So, we just wanted to figure out the problem. I encountered a problem during my seclusion. I couldn't make up my mind. Yi Rou said. What? What aspect couldn't you make up your mind? Yi Daoling asked. Severing my emotions. Yi Rou said. Hiss. Yi Daoling sighed softly. He didn't expect to face such a problem while climbing the heavenly Tao. With his cultivation level, he didn't need to consider such a problem for a while. However, if it was just severing his emotions, why couldn't he make up his mind? One had to know that the heavenly Tao was the only great Tao in the world. Serving the Tao was also fundamental. In order to climb above the heavenly Tao, what was the point of caring about love? The elusive black dragon, the divine dragon that soared into the sky, and the talented azure dragon were all heavenly Tao realm experts. Weren't they dedicated to serving the Tao? How could they be affected by the mundane matters? To them, these were ultimately trivial matters. A person might only have one such opportunity in their life. If they lost it, it would probably be too difficult to break through again. Yi Daowen looked at Yi Ro with a puzzled expression and said, "Emotions? How do you sever it? That crane is Fang Yen. That deer is Fang Yen. That enemy general is Fang Yen. That malicious ghost is also Fang Yen." Yi Ro looked at Fang Yen with a burning gaze before turning her gaze away shyly. She said, "I can't bear to kill him." Chapter 670. That crane is you, that deer is you, that enemy general is you, and that malicious ghost is also you. So, I can't bear to kill you. Yi Ro said it lightly, and there was only a little shyness on her face. She was not used to expressing her feelings with this kind of attitude and words, but Fang Yen could hear the danger and deep affection in her words. What was the way of heaven? Fang Yen didn't have a chance to see the real body, so he didn't understand it. But for Yi Ro, who was trying to break through, there was a world in every grain of sand, and a heaven in every flower. Every thought and every scene was an opportunity. The crane was an opportunity, the deer was an opportunity, the enemy general was an opportunity, and the evil ghost was also an opportunity. Every time a scene flashed, it was an opportunity for Yi Ro to break through the shackles and climb the heavenly path. It could be seen that Yi Ro was actually full of confidence for this breakthrough. Because even God was willing to give her so many opportunities. At that time, she just needed to follow the way of heaven. Then, there would be another way of heaven in Swallow Dock, just like the old drunkard Mo Qingdi. This was a happy event for the Yi family, and also something for the whole Swallow Dock to be proud of. However, the words, "I can't bear to kill him," meant that she missed such a great opportunity. Learning martial arts was more difficult than crossing a single plank bridge in the college entrance examination. No matter good or bad students, no matter how hard they studied or how lazy they were, as long as they endured for a certain period of time, the school would give them a fair chance to take the exam. But climbing the way of martial arts wasn't like that. There was no competition. You only needed to give yourself competition. There was no examiner. Your strength was the biggest affirmation of yourself. Ordinary people would have to wait for decades, but Yi Gentle let it in so easily. She let go of the chance to climb the way of heaven. Between the way of heaven and Fang Yen, she chose Fang Yen. Fang Yen had to admit that Yi Ro's words touched him. His heart was full of affection, and even his eyes were a little red. Others didn't know what she had paid for this, but he did. She went against the way of heaven, and in the end, her realm collapsed, her energy scattered, and her whole body burned like a volcano that was about to erupt. If he hadn't arrived in time, Yi Ro might have died. Because I can't kill Fang Yen, my mind is in a mess, and my aura is out of control. My eyes couldn't see, my ears couldn't hear, and there was only a sliver of remnant thought in my heart. My body's temperature was rising, and my mouth was getting thirstier. Breathing was difficult, and I nearly died. Back then, I also thought that I was about to die. Yi Gentle recounted what she had encountered while climbing the heavenly Tao realm. This was an incomparably precious experience. For experts like Yi Daowen and Yi Daoling who had the possibility of climbing the heavenly Tao, this was a hint. For the younger generation of the Yi clan, this was a very good warning and example. After all, not everyone had the opportunity to climb the heavenly way. Even if someone did, they wouldn't share their experiences and insights with others for free. However, Yi Ro deliberately mentioned this in front of Fang Yen, which naturally made the Yi family feel a little indignant. This is the treasure that our Yi family has risked our lives for. How could he just give it to an outsider? Is it worth it? Fang Yen looked at Yi Ro and asked. You missed such a good chance. What about you? Yi Ro looked at Fang Yen with bright eyes. Her face was as pale as a sheet, and it was because of this that when she began to feel shy, the blush on her face would be especially clear and alluring. You nearly died to save me. Is it worth it? Fang Yen grinned and said, aren't I living well now? It's just an opportunity. Yi Rou said, just try again next time. Her voice was indifferent, but her attitude was unyielding. To her, climbing the heavenly Tao was like eating a sumptuous meal. If she didn't eat it today, she could eat it next time. As Fang Yen laughed, Yi Rou laughed as well. The two of them laughed in an unrestrained and warm manner. Humph. Yi Daowen couldn't stand it any further as he coughed forcefully a few times. She was flirting with another man in front of her father. Was this still his daughter, Yi Rou? Such a Yi Rou made him feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Yi Daowen looked at Yi Rou and said, was it really Fang Yen who saved you? Yes. Yi Rou replied seriously. She didn't like to lie, and every word she said seemed to be honest. Yi Daowen examined his daughter's face several times and nodded, then we misunderstood Fang Yen. Yi Daoling looked at Fang Yen thoughtfully, then looked at Yi Rou and said, Fang Yen came to say that he had a premonition that something might happen to you. Is there really such a thing as a telepathic connection? I don't know if there is, but when Fang Yen went over. Yi Rou thought for a moment and said, I was already delirious and was suffering from the heart fire. Rou's state at that time was very dangerous. If the heart fire was allowed to burn or explode in her body, it is possible. Fang Yen thought for a moment and said, she would either be crazy or stupid. Her life might even be in danger. This is also the reason why I broke into the Yi family's ancestral hall in a hurry. So, please forgive me. This is also for the good of the Yi family. After figuring out the situation and knowing that he misunderstood Fang Yen, Yi Daowen was straightforward. He bowed deeply to Fang Yen on the bed and said, thank you for saving Rou. Fang Yen waved his hand and said, I just said that Rou is my girlfriend. If you want me to save her, I will save her. If you don't want me to save her, I will save her. We will discuss other things later. Yi Daowen said. He was still unwilling to admit the identity of Fang Yen as his prospective son-in-law. He was even unwilling to discuss this topic with him in depth. This was a major event related to the Yi family. As a father, he might not be able to make the decision. However, he was Yi Rou's father and could make the decision to a certain extent. He turned to look at Yi Rou and said, your body is weak. Go back and lie down to rest. After that, he flicked his sleeves and left. Yi Daoling looked at Fang Yen and said, Fang Yen, we misunderstood you. As you said just now, you have your position, and we also have our position. The Yi family's face needs to be maintained, and the Yi family's ancestral hall needs to be guarded. Some unpleasant things happened in the middle. Don't take it to heart. After all, you didn't suffer a loss. Instead, it was my side that suffered a big loss in your hands, right? Fang Yen looked at Yi Daoling and said, third uncle, I know. It's not easy for us, and it's not easy for you. I won't take these things to heart. That's good. Yi Daoling laughed and said, however, I also want to thank you for saving our family's Rou. She is the lifeblood of our family. We don't want her to be in any danger. I thank you on behalf of the Yi family. When Yi Daoling spoke, he bowed deeply to Fang Yen. The younger generation of the Yi family looked at each other and also bowed to Fang Yen. Fang Yen didn't dare to accept it. When he wanted to get up from the bed, his wrist was weak and he almost fell to the ground. Yi Fengxing's hands and feet were nimble. He used his big belly to push Fang Yen back. He looked at Yi Daoling and said, third uncle, Fang Yen was seriously injured just now. His body is very weak. How about we let him have a good rest? Yi Daoling nodded and said, that's right. Fang Yen should rest well here. There's no need to rush home. I'll personally go to the Fang family in a while and explain it to your family. Fang Yen nodded and said, okay, thank you, third uncle. Yi Daoling walked to Yi Ro and said a few words to comfort her. Don't feel bad, relax, and there will be opportunities in the future. Then, he turned around and left. Yi Fengxing patted Fang Yan's shoulder and said, I knew you would be fine. Fang Yan looked at his chubby face and said gratefully, thank you. He knew that Yi Fengxing had been speaking up for him and protecting his position. It wasn't easy to do this kind of thing in his own home. It wasn't easy for Yi Fengxing either. Everyone had their own difficulties. Yi Fengxing laughed and said, when did you become so wishy-washy? The Fang Huahua I know isn't such a person. He looked at his cousins who were guarding the room and refused to leave. He pushed their shoulders and said, let's go. We didn't sleep last night. Let's go back and sleep. We're so sleepy. There were still some people who wanted to say something, but they were stopped by Yi Fengxing's fat palm. When Yi Fengxing helped close the door, he winked at Fang Yan who was lying on the bed. Fang Yan smiled bitterly. This guy was really a good brother. Bang! The wooden door of the room was closed. Only Fang Yan and Yi Ro were left in the room. The young couple hadn't seen each other for months. When they met again, it was such a dangerous moment. Now that the crisis was over, the two of them could be described as surviving a disaster. There were some indescribable feelings in their hearts. Fang Yan looked at Yi Ro, and Yi Ro looked back at Fang Yan. The two of them looked at each other. Endless words were exchanged through their eyes. They didn't even need to speak. I've been thinking. Fang Yan lowered his head and said, if I die like this, although you'll miss me, I'll more or less feel indignant. For a smart person like me, why would I give up my life for a woman whom I've only held hands with a few times? Isn't that too much of a loss? Yes, it's too much of a loss. Yi Ro nodded. She walked towards Fang Yan step by step. Her body was weak, so even when she walked, she was a little unsteady. This time, she had really lost a lot of energy. Yi Ro stood at the head of the bed and stood in front of Fang Yan. She said softly, look up. What? Fang Yan looked up and asked. Yi Ro bowed slightly and pressed her soft lips against Fang Yan's. Chapter 671. The girl's lips were soft and cool, as if he was eating a mint-flavored cotton candy. This was not the first time that Fang Yan and Yi Ro had intimate contact, but the previous contact could only be called lip-rubbing. This was their first real kiss. Yi Ro not only pressed her lips on Fang Yan's, but also put her tongue into Fang Yan's mouth. Oh, this was a French kiss. Fang Yan didn't know why it was called a French kiss when people put their tongues into each other's mouth and stirred. He didn't even know what kind of French kiss was, such as Hua Xia's, Britishes, Koreans, Japaneses, or Africans. He didn't have much experience in this. However, Yi Ro's movements were also jerky. She put her tongue into Fang Yan's mouth, and it was as stiff as a frozen snail. The snail crawled and squirmed with difficulty, but it always accidentally scratched Fang Yan's teeth. Fang Yan didn't feel any pain. He just felt sorry for Yi Ro. He was worried that his teeth might cut her tongue. Because his mouth was blocked by Yi Ro, Fang Yan could only signal Yi Ro with his eyes. He turned his eyes to the left to remind Yi Ro that she could also turn her tongue to the left. He turned his eyes to the right to remind Yi Ro to turn her tongue to the right as well. His eyes were the guiding light, and all Yi Ro needed to do was wave her tongue and follow his instructions. However, this idiot didn't understand what Fang Yan was saying at all. Because of her shyness, she closed her eyes tightly. Because of her nervousness, her body trembled slightly. Her legs, which were weak to begin with, became unstable. It was as if she would fall into Fang Yan's arms if she was not careful. Yi Ro really wanted to express her enthusiasm. Maybe it was because of her love for Fang Yan. She was doing this very seriously, but she wasn't good at it. Serious children were worthy of encouragement. Therefore, even though Fang Yan carefully avoided her, afraid that his teeth would hurt her tongue, even though Fang Yan was nervous and worried that her body would not be able to take it and she would accidentally fall to the ground. However, Fang Yan still didn't stop him. Everyone had a learning process, and no one was born with it. For example, when he first started practicing martial arts, he couldn't even stand properly in the simplest stance, let alone a difficult skill like kissing. Thump. Yi Ro had just woken up, and her physical strength was exhausted. Finally, she could not hold on any longer and fell forward. Fang Yan immediately reached out his arms and held Yi Ro in his arms. The warm and fragrant body entered his embrace, and their bodies collided firmly together. At this time, Yi Ro didn't have the toughness of a martial arts master, nor did she have the arrogance and coldness of her usual temperament. She was like a little woman who hadn't recovered from a serious injury, lying in the arms of her man happily. That place made her feel safe. Sense of security. Yi Ro chewed on this familiar yet strange word in her heart. In the past, she never felt that it was dangerous. She just felt that there was no challenge in life. Safe. This word should be used on others. She had never felt this way before. Fang Yan held Yi Ro tightly in his arms and whispered, "Before I woke up, I had a dream. What did you dream about?" Yi Ro asked aloud. "A bad dream. Bad dreams must be told," Yi Ro said. "My mom said that bad dreams won't come true after they are told. Did your mom say that?" Fang Yan laughed. This Yi Ro was so cute, just like a naive little girl. Of course, she was originally a little girl. It was just that her talent in martial arts was so outstanding that people always forgot her age and gender. Because she was so powerful, no one had ever thought of protecting her. Yes. Yi Ro pressed her head in Fang Yan's arms and nodded gently. Her forehead rested on Fang Yan's chest, which made Fang Yan feel a burst of itch. "Okay." Fang Yan thought for a while and said, "Actually, I don't remember it very clearly. I just feel that my head was in a mess at that time, and images kept flashing in my head. In the dream, Bai Xiu didn't die. He was still alive and even more powerful than before. He said that he also liked you and challenged me. We had a fight and I defeated him again. But I don't know what happened, but you left with him. I was very angry and shouted at you, 'Yi Ro, you are my girlfriend. How can you like someone else?' You told me that liking is liking, and there was no no or a no. Later, there was a longer story. I met Bai Xiu again, I killed him, and you stabbed me. I think this dream is ridiculous." "It is ridiculous." Yi Ro nodded seriously. "I don't like Bai Xiu. I didn't like him before." Fang Yan opened his mouth and laughed. Yi Ro really didn't like Bai Xiu. In order to pursue the phoenix, and also to take revenge on Yi Ro for beating him up again, Fang Yan had deliberately used Bai Xiu's name to write an extremely mushy love letter to Yi Ro. Yi Ro had actually run over to Bai Xiu and beat him up. "At that time, I knew that the love letter was written by you," Yi Ro said in a low voice. "You knew?" Fang Yan was surprised and said, "If you knew it was written by me, why did you go to Bai Xiu to settle the score?" "Because I don't like him," Yi Ro said. This kind of answer is really capricious. Although I know it's not Bai Xiu's fault, since I don't like him, I have a reason to beat him up, so I went to beat him up. "I don't like that kind of joke," Yi Ro said. "I didn't like it at that time." Fang Yan nodded and said, "It won't happen in the future." "I heard what you said." "What?" "What you said just now, the things you told my father and third uncle." Fang Yan smiled and said, "It's good that you heard it, so you can be mentally prepared in advance." Yi Ro nodded and said, "You said you wanted to coax and drug him." Fang Yan's heart was in his throat. He forgot that he had said such a stupid thing. He explained anxiously and said, "I just said it casually." "You're so smart, how could I deceive you?" "If you drugged him." Yi Ro's voice didn't sound very real because her head was buried in Fang Yan's arms. "Tell me in advance, and I'll pretend not to see it." Fang family. Old man Fong Hui carried the birdcage to the backyard early in the morning. The backyard was sunny and the air was fresher. Opening the back door next to the small courtyard where Mo Qingdi used to live, he could see the scenery on both sides of Shihizi River. There were village women washing clothes and vegetables by the river, urchins running and playing by the river, and old men playing chess and fishing by the river. Because they were in the middle of a battle, they didn't have time to care for the fish that bit the bait. Fong Hui thought that he should take his old friend out for a stroll on such a good day, but the eagle's silence made him worried. Old friend. Fong Hui had never given the eagle a name, so he always called it by that name. Ever since it came to the Fong family, it had become a part of the family. Today is another good day. The eagle looked at him with lifeless eyes. Its body was getting weaker and weaker. Look at you, you're such a stupid bird. Other birds are catching insects in the sky and fish in the river, but you? Other than standing here all day, you can't do anything. You don't even know how to say a word. The Vajra eagle still didn't speak, no longer teasing him like before. Fong Hui sighed and said, "You've also got the temper of the Fong family, stubborn." A voice came from the front. Fong Hui tilted his head to listen and then said to the Vajra eagle in front of him, "Old buddy, they should be here soon. I hope that kid didn't suffer in the Yi family." The eagle naturally didn't respond. Steady footsteps came over. Yi Daoling stood beside Fong Hui with a smile and said, "Old man, are you walking your bird again? I'm old, talking to people will be disliked. So when I have nothing to do, I talk to it. It doesn't dislike me, and I don't dislike it either. Instead, we live in harmony." Fong Hui said with a serious face. Yi Daoling said with a face full of guilt, "Old man, don't be angry. Last night, everything happened so suddenly. Big brother and I were a little rash. We invited you over to discuss a solution to the problem. At that time, Big brother was worried about Wenwan's safety, so his words were not pleasant to hear. Old man, don't lower yourself to our level. I came here this time to apologize to you, old man." Fong Hui turned to look at Yi Daoling and asked, "Did you figure it out?" "Yes." Yi Daoling nodded. Fong Yen really broke into the Yi family's gate to help Wenwan. It happened suddenly, and we didn't quite understand his behavior. That's why there was a series of misunderstandings. You know it, but I don't. Fong Hui sneered and said, "My grandson was worried about Wenwan's safety. He didn't even give me the time to explain and ran to your Yi family. What's the result? How did your Yi family treat my Fong family? How did your Yi family treat Fong Yen? What does my grandson owe your Yi family? If you think about it carefully, it's your Yi family that owes my grandson more. Daoling, our Fong family is small. We can't let others bully us, right?" Chapter 672. A family was equivalent to a fruit tree, and the members of the family were the fruits of the tree. Most of the fruits on the fruit tree of the family were the type with ordinary aptitude. They were not pleasing to the eye, and hated to taste. This was also the reason why ordinary people or ordinary families occupied the majority of the world. This was the foundation of society, the base of the pyramid. A few of the fruit trees of the family would have one or two geniuses with above-average aptitude. They could not lead the whole family to charge forward, and they were far ahead of the other children of the family, neighbors, and friends. Therefore, these people were the object of envy. Some lucky clans would have several big and sweet fruits on their fruit trees. Like the Yi clan, where the three tigers advanced side by side, the three tigers took the lead to attack the city and pillage the stronghold, while the other clan's disciples waved flags and shouted war cries to support the attack. This kind of clan was extremely rare. Once they appeared, they could become the best in their field. For example, the families on the wealth list every year, they jointly controlled billions of funds through blood ties. The Fong family had a strange talent. All the people of Swallow Dock said so. The Fong clan was not a top-notch clan in Swallow Dock. Not to mention a colossal clan like the Yi clan, the Fang clan was slightly inferior to the Ruan clan where Wan Xian was from, the Zhu clan where Zhu Zaidan was from, and the Li clan where Li Shao Tian and Li Long were from. The biggest reason for this situation was that the Fang clan did not have many descendants, and they did not have many sons. Old man Fang Hui had at least one brother. When it came to the generation of Fang Yan's father, Fang Yixing, there were only one boy and 3 girls. The 3 aunts had married off, and Fang Yixing had died in battle. The backbone of the Fang family at the entrance of Swallow Dock was suddenly wiped out. This was also why the heavy responsibility of revitalizing the Fang family fell on the shoulders of a young man like Fang Yan. He was the same age as Yi Fengsheng, Li Shaotian, and the others, but he had already shouldered the responsibility of Yi Daoling and Yi Daowen's generation. Wasn't it natural for him to work harder than others? Old Master Fang Hui was a martial arts prodigy. Fang clan's Tai Chi Kung Fu, which was famous for its gentleness, was modified by him. He infused it with a strong and forceful force, turning it from a strong body into an invincible, killing technique. Even Mo Qingdi and Fang Yan were deeply influenced by this Kung Fu. Fang Hui was already famous at a young age, and the people he associated with were the best in the inner river. Later, he was chosen by a leader within the Red Wall and became the emperor's personal guard. Fang Hui's legs were paralyzed in the prime of his life and he became half a cripple. On the other hand, Fang Hui's only son, Fang Yixing, was not proficient in martial arts, but was rather interested in calligraphy and painting. The Fang family sank to the bottom of the valley. However, the Fang family had produced someone like Mo Qingdi. Strictly speaking, Mo Qingdi could not even be considered as a true member of the Fang clan. He was merely a disciple that Fang Hui had taken in from the outside when he was young. However, as he practiced, he was able to comprehend the Tao through martial arts and became one of the 3 dragons of Hua Xia, the Azure Dragon. Not only the entire Swallow Dock, but even the entire pugilistic world in Hua Xia had a whole new level of respect for the Fang clan. Don't underestimate the enemy. When they were at their peak, who would dare to speak harshly to the Fang clan? At that time, the Fang family was in the limelight. Even the 3 tigers of the Yi clan, who were shining brightly now, were suppressed by Mo Qingdi to the point that they could barely breathe. There was no chance for them to stand out at all. Misfortune never came alone. When Mo Qingdi was at his peak, he accepted the challenge of the Dragon God and his tendons were cut off by the Dragon God. Just when everyone looked down on the Fang clan again, some people sighed, and some people were gloating. Fang Yan stood up. Fang Yan comprehended the heart of Tai Chi in his 20s. No one dared to look down on the Fang clan, but there was no way to pay too much attention to the Fang clan. It was like the fruits of a fruit tree. Most of them were thin and ugly, but there was a chance that one of them would mutate and become the most dazzling one in the entire forest. Fang Hui was like that in the past, Mo Qingdi was like that later, and Fang Yan was like that now. Yi Daoling lived in Yanjing most of the time, and there was a huge gap in age and seniority. There was little contact between the two. However, he didn't dare to have the slightest contempt for this old man. Not to mention his identity as the emperor's guard, he shamelessly ran to the Yi clan to challenge them. In the end, Yi Rou forced his precious grandson, Fang Yan, to use the heart of Tai Chi. Just take this investment as an example. He was also extremely foresight, right? Not to mention the current emotional entanglement between the 2 young people, which caused so much trouble for the Yi clan. Hearing Fang Hui say, "Daoling, our Fang clan is weak, and we can't let others bully us, right?" Yi Daoling knew that this old man was ready to bully others. The Fang clan had this kind of ability. Even when they were in a weak position, they could always bully others as they wished. For example, himself. Yi Daoling looked at Fang Hui and said with a smile, "Old man, what happened last night was something that no one wanted to see. We have some misunderstandings towards Fang Yan, and we owe him something." "You're right, your Fang clan doesn't owe anyone anything. My position was taken by Fang Yan for me. I don't know what to do to thank Fang Yan, but if there's something I can do, I naturally won't refuse." Fang Hui nodded with a smile and said with a straight face, the Yi family is capable, and the Yi family is also moral. Everyone is well aware of this. We don't need you to do anything special for our Fong family. Although the Fong clan is weak, we still have a bowl of rice to eat. I just hope that when the Fong clan is being bullied, the Yi clan can stand on the side of fairness and speak up for our Fong clan. This isn't difficult, right? Yi Daoling smiled bitterly and said, "Old man, this is indeed difficult." Why? Daoling is unwilling? Fang Hui looked at Yi Daoling and asked. I know it's not easy. Yi Daoling put away the smile on his face and said, but our Yi clan is duty-bound. Fang Hui reached out to pat Yi Daoling's arm, but thinking of his current position, he raised his hand in the air and didn't put it down. Yi Daoling smiled and squatted down. He said, "Old man, come, I'll push you out for a walk. I haven't chatted with you for a long time. How can one have so much time to gossip with others when one is in an official career?" Fang Hui said with a smile, "Caring for the people of the country is 100 times better than caring for an old man like me. Daoling, I appreciate your kindness. No need, go and do your work. I know you have a lot of things to do." Yi Daoling pondered for a moment and said, "Old man, then you sit here and bask in the sun. I'll go back and make some preparations." Go. Fang Hui nodded and said, "It's time to make some preparations." Fang Yan was seriously injured. At least, that's what he told others. Fang Yan felt that his body was empty. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't muster any strength. He felt that he had lost all his martial arts and became a trash who could no longer practice martial arts. That's what he told the Yi clan. Yi Fengsheng stood at the head of Fang Yan's bed, his eyes sweeping over Fang Yan's face and body. It was like a brilliant policeman was examining a suspect he had caught. Ha ha ha, Yi Fengsheng laughed. Fang Yan looked up at Yi Fengsheng and said, "I'm already injured like this, what's so funny? You really lost your strength?" Yi Fengsheng asked. Really? Fang Yan nodded seriously. Stop it. Yi Fengsheng said with a smile. You just don't want to go back? You just want to stay in our Yi clan? You just want to see my sister a few more times? Is there a need to make yourself look so pitiful? I'm telling the truth. Fang Yan said seriously. The smile on Yi Fengsheng's face disappeared. He looked at Fang Yan seriously again and said, "You're not joking with me, are you? Do you think I'm joking with you? You really don't have any martial arts left?" Fang Yan sighed softly and said, "I've lost it temporarily. I don't know what will happen in the future. You won't look down on me, right?" Yi Fengsheng was stunned for a moment and said anxiously, "Why would I? We're brothers. Whether you know martial arts or not, we're all brothers. Ruan Xian's martial arts aren't good, but we've never looked down on him. You have to leave quickly, you can't stay in Swallow Dock any longer. Otherwise, when Sir Shen unleashes his power, it'll be very dangerous for you to stay here. You can't go back to Flower City either, it's also very dangerous there. We'll go to North Sea, where there aren't many people. It won't be easy for them to find us. Zidan is there, I'll go with you. If anything happens, us brothers can take care of each other. Call Lil, Tian, Ruan Xian, and the rest to go with us. When we're free, we can catch birds and hunt for rabbits as an ambush from 10 sides, Fang Yan added. Yi Fengsheng threw a punch at Fang Yan's face and scolded, "Fang Huahua, you idiot. You're joking about something like this?" Fang Yan tilted his head to dodge Yi Fengsheng's attack and explained, "I was hoping that you could cooperate with me. With your personality, if I told you that I'm fine, wouldn't you show all your emotions on your face? Everyone in your family is smart. They only need to take a look at you to know what kind of situation I'm in. If I didn't act more seriously, they would have already chased me out of the house, right?" Yi Fengsheng thought about it and accepted Fang Yan's reason. He said, "My sister's body is weak now, she won't be able to leave the house for a while. It'll be good for you to stay with her. However, you don't have to go to Sir's place for the time being, right?" Fang Yen was silent for a long time, then said in a low voice, "The beauty cave is the best place to wear down a man's willpower. After seeing gentleness, I suddenly lose interest in everything. Because I see things that are too beautiful, I hope that those ugly things that people don't want to accept will come later, or even never have to face them. However, I still have to face them in the end." Chapter 673. What are you trying to say? Yi Fengsheng asked in confusion. If you want to stay with my sister, you can keep pretending to be dead. If you say that you haven't recovered, the Yi family will take responsibility for you. If you don't bring it up, the Yi family won't drive you out. If you really lose your kung fu, the Yi family will have to give you an explanation. The Yi family won't bully others. You are a rough man. You don't understand. Fang Yen sighed. You appreciate the flowers and don't want to see the branches again. You experience the spring wind and summer rain and don't want to endure the heat and cold. You go through the whole spring and want to stay in the season where everything grows. When Fang Yen saw Yi Rou, he wanted to stay with her. He didn't want to deal with those things that made him tired and suffocated. He wanted to enjoy this kind of joy, which was as simple as a piece of chocolate and a little love song. Moreover, the joy in his heart was far greater than what he showed. Fang Yen really liked to stay with Yi Rou. He liked to see her smile and not smile. He liked to hear her speak or not speak. He liked her every word and every move. Fang Yen knew that he had fallen in love, but he didn't reject this feeling. He even enjoyed it as if it were malt syrup. Love. Fang Yen thought in his heart. He felt that this was the most beautiful word in the world. Yi Rou failed to conquer nature. At the critical moment of life and death, he risked his life to save her. He and Yi Rou went through the gates of hell together. Only after experiencing life and death could one understand the preciousness of life. Therefore, what Fang Yen wanted to do most now was to stay by Yi Rou's side quietly but restlessly. This feeling was much stronger and more intense than when he went to find the teacher to denounce him and force him to give him an explanation. Because he knew that if he met Mr. Yi, there might be another bloody storm. The situation that he would face in the end might be far beyond his expectation. Even he couldn't control what his future would be like. He didn't like the feeling of being out of control. Fang Yen was a lazy person and a pacifist. He really didn't want to experience so many disgusting things. "Sir, are you not like that in my heart, sir?" Yi Fengsheng grinned and said, "I may not know as much as you about other things. But when it comes to picking up girls, you're far inferior to me." Fang Yen looked at him thoughtfully and said, "You can't be? You, a virgin, have the nerve to say that a home run winner like me is a bore?" Fang Yen narrowed his eyes and smiled, saying, "Is it the one from the Bailey family?" Yi Fengsheng was shocked and asked, "How do you know?" "Good guess. But I clearly liked Xiao Lu in the past. You have also liked Xiao Hua, Xiao Tu, Zhang Xiaoman, and Li Xiaoying. You have liked many girls." Yi Fengsheng's face was full of embarrassment as he said, "I wasn't very sensible in the past. I think every girl has something lovely about her. For every girl you like, that girl doesn't like you. Xiao Zhu is an exception." Yi Fengsheng said with a red face, "She is good to me, and I am good to her too. You've picked up Bailey Lu's most beloved sister. Just wait for that madman Bailey Lu to come back from the Gobi Desert and settle the score with you." Yi Fengsheng smiled bitterly and said, "When that time comes, you guys have to support me. Besides, Xiao Zhu and I are truly in love. We've already discussed it. When both our parents agree, we'll get married." Fang Yen nodded and said, "As long as you don't let her down, we'll definitely speak up for you. At worst, we'll just let Bailey Lu beat you up. That won't do. My soft and tender skin can't withstand the ravages of a madman like him." "You didn't think about this when you were picking up her sister?" "I thought about it." "Then why are you still picking her up? How can you say that? You're too bold for your own good," Yi Fengsheng said with a smile. "Besides, with you guys around, I'm not afraid of Bailey Lu. He's no match for you. You're really good at scheming. Fang Yen said with a sigh. But I still can't beat you. If you were to lie here for 8 to 10 years, wouldn't the matter between you and my sister be set in stone? If you live in our Yi family, would they be able to recruit other men? Wouldn't they laugh at us? Fang Yen sneered and said, if I want to marry Ting Nua, I'll do it openly. I'll use 8 sedan bearers and 100 Bentleys to send the bride to Yanjing City for 3 laps. Then, I'll bring her back to our Fang family in Swallow Dock. Is there a need to use such dirty tricks? Yi Fengsheng nodded repeatedly and said, that's right. That's how it should be done. Women all like to be ostentatious. Fang Yen waved at Yi Fengsheng. Yi Fengsheng put his big face over. Go and tell Ting Nua that there's something wrong with my current situation. Fang Yen whispered in Yi Fengsheng's ear. Don't say that I told you. Just say that you found out when you came to see me. Say that I'm enduring the pain and don't want her to know. Understood. Yi Fengsheng nodded seriously and said, I'll say that if she doesn't come to see you now, she'll never see you again. Fang Yen slapped Yi Fengsheng. Yi Fengsheng laughed out loud and dodged like a nimble rabbit. Continue pretending to be dead. I'll go get someone for you. Yi Fengsheng ran to the door and said to Fang Yen when he closed the door, but, my sister may be resting with the great ancestor. She may not be able to come over. Don't let the great ancestor know that I'm dying. Fang Yen warned. The great ancestor came. The great ancestor came with Yi Ro. The great ancestor stood at the head of the bed and looked at Fang Yen, who was lying on the bed with a weak body and an ashen face. She said to Yi Ro in her extremely hearty voice, I thought this guy deliberately instigated the rumors to deceive us. Looking at his situation now, I'm afraid he really can't make it. Fang Yen wanted to beat Yi Fengsheng to death. No, I encouraged Bailey Lu to beat him to death. We agreed not to let the great ancestor know, but you've brought her here. Yi Ro looked at the embarrassed Fang Yen with great interest, and a seductive smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Little Yanzi, where do you feel uncomfortable? The great ancestor looked at Fang Yen and asked. Great ancestor. Fang Yen was about to cry. How could she call someone like that? Little Yanzi sounded like a character in The Princess Pearl. He didn't want to be a eunuch. He tried to squeeze out a smile and said, I feel much better now. I feel much better when I see you. You are really the reincarnation of Guanyin Bodhisattva. I won't die, will I? I won't die for the time being. It's good that you won't die, the great ancestor said. If you're really going to die, I can't say these words to you. Ro Ro is my favorite child. I don't want her to be a widow at such a young age. However, I know you are cunning and won't die easily. That's why I'm here to say these words to you. Do you like my Ro Ro? Fang Yen looked at Yi Ro and quickly looked away. He said with some embarrassment, yes. What do you mean? I'm asking if you like my Ro Ro? Yes. Fang Yen answered with infinite shyness. He lifted the blanket covering him up to cover half of his face. All right, all right. Don't be shy. Little Yanzi, I've known you since you were born naked. You're not a shy guy. Fang Yen put away the shyness on his face and said seriously, don't they say that old people like honest and shy children? The problem is that you don't like either of them. The great ancestor said. Since you like my Ro Ro, you must want to be with my Ro Ro, right? Yes. Fang Yen looked at Yi Ro firmly and said, we have to be together. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yen with her bright and beautiful eyes. Even if she was shy, she was unwilling to turn her face away. Then you should also know that it's not so easy. At least, these men in the Yi family are not willing to, right? The great ancestor looked at Fang Yen and asked. It's shameful to talk about it. There are so many men in the Yi family. There are dozens of them, but they have to rely on a girl to revitalize the family. That's right. Fang Yen echoed. How can it be like this? If they like masters of the heavenly path, they can work hard to climb up. Why do you need my girlfriend to support you? The great ancestor looked at Fang Yen with a face full of contempt and said, don't you feel pain in your back? If you are also a master of the heavenly path and a hero like underestimating enemy, even if those guys surnamed Yi don't agree, what can they do? If you steal your wife and run, will they chase after you and beat you up? Fang Yen did not dare to speak rashly. Whose side is this old lady on? I'm flattering you, okay? Little Yanzi, tell me, when can you climb up to the heavenly path? This, great ancestor, I'm working hard. Fang Yen said. It was difficult for him to answer this question. Who knew when he could climb up to the heavenly path? The great ancestor nodded and said, although I'm old, I'm not muddle-headed. I'm not an unreasonable person. I know that the heavenly path is illusory. There are so many people in Swallow Dock who practice martial arts, but in the past 100 years, didn't underestimating enemy appear? Great ancestor, what do you mean? Don't meet sir. The great ancestor's expression was solemn. Every wrinkle on his face seemed to hide a yellowing past. Chapter 674. Don't see sir, the elder ancestor said again. Her voice was a little softer. There were reminders, warnings, but mostly pleas. Because Fang Yen was the Fang Yen that Yi Ro liked, she also liked the Fang Yen that Yi Ro liked. Fang Yen wanted to see sir and interrogate him. This was not a secret in the whole of Swallow Dock. In Fang Yan's mind, a life for a life, a debt for a life, was the highest and most important rule of conduct that humans should abide by. If the murderer didn't pay with his life, then there would be more people who would kill. If the debtor didn't pay, then no one would be willing to borrow money. Some people said that this society was so cold that even the closest friends couldn't borrow money. However, if you had the experience of borrowing money and not paying it back, then wouldn't you be harming your own friends? The people on the roadside wouldn't be willing to lend you a single cent. Everything had a cause, and good and evil would be rewarded. However, the elder ancestor of the Yi family said to Fang Yen with a serious face, don't see sir. Because of his good relationship with Yi Fengsheng and his bad relationship with Yi Ro, Fang Yen often went to the Yi family. Sometimes he went to play with Yi Fengsheng, and sometimes he went to take revenge on Yi Ro. The more he went to the Yi family, the more he interacted with the elder ancestor of the Yi family. She was gentle, loving, generous, and candid, and even joked with Fang Yen from time to time. She often gave Fang Yen food and scolded him as a naughty monkey. Fang Yen liked the elder ancestor of the Yi family, just like how he liked his grandmother, who passed away a long time ago. In his memory, the elder ancestor had never spoken to him in such a serious tone. She had always been kind and cheerful, and treated him the same as other children. Maybe she liked him a little more. Fang Yan's face was solemn. He kept silent and didn't immediately answer the elder ancestor's question. Or rather, he responded to the elder ancestor's request because she said, don't see sir. Not, don't see Mr. Seeing Fang Yan's expression, the great ancestor sighed softly and said, little Yen, I know this request is difficult for you. I also know that you have encountered some unfair treatment. In life, everyone has a hard life. But since it's not easy, why do you want to put yourself in an even more dangerous situation? Your grandfather was a smart man. I've lived for 100 years, and I've rarely seen anyone smarter than him. He did everything he could for the Fang clan, and in order to protect you, his only child, he used up all of his energy. Back then, he came to our Yi family to challenge us, saying that our Wen Nuo was not as good as his family's Fang Yen. Dao Wen and Dao Ling were not willing to accept the challenge. It was me who agreed to let you and Wen Nuo compete every year. I have also been a parent, so I can understand the difficulties of being a parent. Besides, having the two of you compete once a year will also have the effect of promoting each other. Do you think I didn't think of your results today? Do you think Dao Wen and Dao Ling didn't think about it before? It's just that I've spoken up, so they can't refute me anymore. Everyone is looking forward to the Fong clan doing well. Your grandfather's leg is lame, and your father has that kind of disaster. The most pitiful thing to do is to underestimate the enemy's family. If you underestimate the enemy, you won't get sick or suffer any disasters. Now, it's still the same as before. Who dares to talk big to your Fong clan? Including those few young boys in our family. Who dares to shout and tie you up, Fong Yen? Who dares to shout and kill you, Fong Yen? Who dares to fetch your grandfather from home in the middle of the night to discuss the matter of punishing you? Of course, they also have the word reason. In a situation where the truth is unknown, it's understandable for them to be angry. You can count with your fingers. Since the day Swallow Dock appeared, who dares to break into other people's door and break into other people's ancestral hall? No, there has never been such a thing. This is the first time you, Fong Yen, have encountered such a matter, and there are still people gossiping about it. Just this morning, Yi Dongxue went to find the Qian clan's eldest son to compare notes, and broke one of his arms and one of his legs. Only then did they stop. When there are external enemies, Swallow Dock is a whole entity. When there were no external enemies, Swallow Dock would once again fight among themselves, fighting incessantly among themselves. It's not just our village, the other villages are the same. But, Fong Yen, there is only one person who can unite all of Swallow Dock, and that is Teacher. You can see Teacher every day, but have you ever wondered why Teacher is Teacher? There are so many people in Swallow Dock, and there are many old men and old women. Why can Long Qinxiang be Teacher? Fong Yen had asked this question before. The person he asked was the old drunkard, Mo Qingbi. He said, "Old drunkard, why is Teacher Teacher Teacher? Why can't you be Teacher Teacher? When it comes to martial arts, you are the best in Swallow Dock." The old drunkard's answer was, "Teacher Teacher is the master of Swallow Dock, and also my teacher. No matter how good a student is, he can't compare with a teacher." At that time, it was just a joke. Fong Yen asked casually, and the old drunkard answered casually. Then, the two of them continued drinking. Fong Yen didn't even carefully consider the deeper meaning of the old drunkard's words. "I've heard some things about you. Although I rarely pay attention to the trivial matters outside, Bai Xiu is dead, and the revenge that should be avenged has been taken. Let yourself rest for the time being, give yourself some time, and make yourself stronger. Isn't this the right way? Why do you force yourself to live such a hard and tiring life?" The great ancestor reached out to hold Yi Ro's little hand and said, "I'm telling you this because I feel sorry for Yi Ro. I know how you feel about her, and I also understand her character. She will definitely support what you want to do unconditionally. She won't say anything, but she will do it with you. If you are safe, she will be safe. If you take risks, she will take risks with you." Fong Yen turned his eyes to Yi Ro, and Yi Ro looked at him with a silent smile. Grandmaster was right. She knew Yi Ro well. Yi Ro didn't talk much, but she liked to express her feelings with actions. If Fong Yen stood on the opposite side of Mr. Yi, she would stand on the opposite side of Mr. Yi without hesitation. In this way, the Yi family was in a difficult position. If the Yi family wanted to protect Yi Ro, they would have to follow Fong Yen. If the Yi family did not protect Yi Ro's life would be in danger. In some matters, it was better for these old people to take a longer view. Fong Yan's throat squirmed as he said in a deep voice, "Ancestor, you're doing this for my sake, for Teng Wen's sake. I completely understand your thoughts. In all honesty, if it were just based on my own likes and dislikes, I wouldn't want to see Sir either. If it wasn't necessary, who would want to offend Sir from Swallow Dock? Who would want to go against an old guy who could raise a freak like Bai Xiu? But, can I not go see Sir? Impossible. Bai Xiu is Sir's disciple, and Bai Xiu killed my father. What is Sir's position in this matter? Does Sir know or not? Sir, are you irrelevant or involved? Why did Sir do this?" Fong Yen deliberately suppressed the anger in his heart, but his voice was still murderous. Sir was the Sir he respected. His father was killed by the disciple of the person he respected. Who wouldn't be angry when encountering such a thing? I went to Sir to seek justice, and also to uncover a mystery. If Sir is still the Sir in my heart, then he should tell me the facts and let me know the truth. If Sir is no longer the Sir in my heart, then even if I don't go to him, will Sir not take the initiative to find me? Instead of passively taking the blow, like Bai Xiu went to watching to set up a fatal trap to deal with me, it's better for me to simply return to Swallow Dock, stand in front of Sir, and make it clear to him. If he scolds me, I will scold him back. If he hits me, I will fight back. Even if I die, I will die in this Swallow Dock, in front of thousands of Swallow Dock villagers. The ancestor sighed softly and said, I knew I couldn't persuade you. Fang Yen jumped up from the bed, bowed deeply to the ancestor, and said, Ancestor, I have let you down this time. This was also an old man he respected, an elder who wholeheartedly hoped for the best for him. The ancestor waved his hand and said, Didn't you ask Feng Sheng to bring a message to Wenro? Let's have a good talk with her. The ancestor moved his little feet and turned to leave, leaving Fang Yen and Yi Ro in the room again. Fang Yen looked at Yi Ro and said, I know, the ancestor is doing this for our own good. Yi Ro nodded lightly. But I can't promise her. I think it's better to settle this kind of thing earlier than later. Fang Yen explained seriously. Yi Ro still nodded and looked at Fang Yen with her watery eyes without blinking. She was calm and sure, but there was no shyness of a little girl. What do you think? Fang Yen said. What do you think? I don't think. Yi Ro said. Your thought is my thought. After thinking for a while, Fang Yen gritted his teeth and said, In this case, I'm going to see Mr. Yi when I feel better. Okay. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yen and said, I'll go with you. Don't go. Don't stop me. Don't always look at me like that. Fang Yen felt a little guilty under Yi Ro's gaze and said, I'm a little embarrassed. You are the man I like. Yi Ro's voice was like the tinkling of spring water, small but clear. Why can't I look at you more? Chapter 675. You are the man I like. Why can't I look at you more? If this sentence came out of Fang Yan's mouth, it wouldn't be surprising at all. However, when this sentence came out of Yi Ro's mouth, Fang Yan felt ecstatic and flattered. Nowadays, everyone was used to men confessing to women. It would be rare and sincere for a woman to confess to a man occasionally, especially for a woman like Yi Ro. What did you say? Fang Yan resisted the palpitation in his heart and asked aloud. Yi Ro just looked at him and giggled, without answering. Fang Yan walked forward and held Yi Ro in his arms, saying with a smile, I was laughed at by Yi Fengxing just now. He said that he may not be as good as me in other things, but in terms of love, I, a virgin, am not qualified to criticize him. I don't even know how to fight back. Then don't fight back. Yi Ro said. You are so cute. I really want to do something inappropriate to you. Fang Yan said. After a pause, he added, but I don't dare to. Yi Ro raised her head from Fang Yan's arms and stared at him with her sparkling eyes. She said, Do you want to coax me with sweet words? What's done cannot be undone. Fang Yan was speechless and hurriedly explained, I just said it casually. This kind of thing is consensual. How can I cheat? I'm not the kind of man you think. Besides, I can't beat you. If you fight back, I can't do anything. It's also possible that I'll be molested by you. Actually. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan's delicate cheeks and said, No one likes to eat raw rice. Everyone is willing to eat cooked rice. Fang Yan was stunned for a long time. He looked at Yi Ro and said, What do you mean? Guess? If I guess wrong, you won't beat me? Some things were inevitable, but there was no need to rush. Fang Yan made up his mind to see Mr. Yi, but he didn't immediately run to see Mr. Yi. At the very least, he wouldn't go until his body recovered. He didn't even return to the Fang clan. On one hand, he wanted to stay in the Yi family to accompany Yi Ro for a while. He didn't know what would happen to him, but he wouldn't leave Yi Ro before she recovered from her serious injury. Perhaps it was because he had risked his life to save her, or perhaps it was because of Yi Ro's good fortune that her failure to climb the Heaven's Way didn't bring her any severe sequelae. It was a great thing that he was alive and well, and that his head was clear and all his limbs whole. It was just that his body was a little weaker. It would probably take a long time for him to achieve such a breakthrough again. Yi Ro was still young, and she would have plenty of opportunities in the future. Moreover, those who had experienced life and death situations would understand the meaning of living better. Living was the greatest meaning. As for what they could obtain while they were alive, it would depend on their own efforts and the blessings of the heavens. He couldn't force it. Fang Yan's situation was worse than Yi Ro's. He didn't notice it at the beginning, thinking that his body was empty because of the volcanic eruption, and he would be fine after a few days of rest. However, when Fang Yan consciously tried to use his heart of Tai Chi, he found that it didn't move anymore. Just like a few years ago, it became a lifeless, stillborn fetus. This made Fang Yan panic. He was even more panicked than he had been 3 years ago. At that time, Fang Yan felt that everything in the world was just a game. Some games were wonderful and exciting, and some were more boring. If you failed or died, you would have a chance to be resurrected. Now, Fang Yan was besieged on all sides, surrounded by powerful enemies. He didn't want to lose even once, and he couldn't afford to lose even once. Without the heart of Tai Chi, it was equivalent to losing an important safety barrier for Fang Yan. He was prepared to reason with the teacher, but if he couldn't reason with him, wouldn't the heart of Tai Chi revolve and the Tai Chi domain fully unfolded? Fang Yan was very happy these days. Every day, he stayed with Yi Ro, said some very, very stupid things, and did some very, very stupid things. Of course, this was when Yi Daowen didn't notice. If Yi Daowen was at home, their meeting would most likely be a little unpleasant. Yi Daoling had already returned to Yanjing to work. With the importance of his current work, it was impossible for him to skip work for a few days. Li Xiaotian has already been warned by his family. His family's old man asked him to leave Swallow Dock immediately, but Li Xiaotian refused. He didn't want to listen to his family's grumbling, so he simply stayed at Wan Qian's house. Wang Kaishuan's life isn't good either. I heard that he has already been scolded by his father, who is a commander, several times. They're worried that you won't feel good, so they didn't come over to talk to you about these things. Yi Fengxing sat by the window and spoke seriously while peeling oranges to eat. Fang Yan lay on the bed and trimmed his nails. His fingers were long and slender, and the joints were fine. Many people said that they should be the hands to play the piano. However, he used them to practice martial arts and kill people. Of course, using these hands to kill people was also very good looking. They're afraid that I'll feel bad, but aren't you afraid that I'll feel bad? Fang Yan used a nail clipper to cut off a nail and said unhappily. Even if you don't feel bad, my heart will feel bad. Yi Fengxing said with a chuckle. Look at what kind of life you're living in our Yi family. You forcibly occupied my room, soaked up my cousin, and even if I gave you food and clothes, you wouldn't change. Fang Yan sighed lightly and said, I've already said that this is my own matter. Today's situation, wasn't it already predicted long ago? We've also said long ago that your matter is our matter. Yi Fengxing said with a chuckle, there's no need to refuse. Some things are more precious because they're difficult. If we were to steal a chicken to beat a dog, would we need to come all the way back from Yanjing? What about in the future? Who cares about the future? Yi Fengxing sneered. Only those who can settle the matter in front of them properly have the right to talk about the future. Fang Yan looked at Yi Fengxing in shock and said, I realize that you're not just fat. It's very philosophical, isn't it? Yi Fengxing said proudly. Suddenly, those words came out of his mouth. After saying them, even he himself was shocked. Did such logical words really come out of Yi Fengxing's mouth? And stupid. Fang Yan said. Your family has lived here for generations. You don't need to think about the future, and your family doesn't need to think about it either. Let's go. Yi Fengxing stuffed the remaining half of the orange into his mouth. As he chewed until his mouth was full of sweet and sour juice, he threw the orange peel at Fang Yan's face and said, "Here you go." After saying that, he pushed the chair away and left. Fang Yan looked at his back and smiled bitterly. I really don't want to drag my brothers into this. Fang Yan originally wanted to make preparations before going to see Mr. Yi, but he didn't expect to see Mr. Yi unprepared. These 2 days, Yi Ro's body was slightly better. Her face wasn't as pale as before, and her steps were more stable. After Yi Fengxing asked around, he found out that Yi Daowen had gone out to visit a friend. So, Fang Yan asked Yi Ro to go to the stone river in the back of the mountain. Ever since Yi Ro failed to pass the trial, they had been holed up in the courtyard of the Yi clan. They didn't even step out of the Yi clan's gate. Although the Yi clan didn't stop him from seeing Yi Ro, being watched by countless people in the Yi clan made him feel a little restricted. The weather was clear, and the wind was gentle. It was a good day for making love, flirting, and making love. Fang Yan and Yi Ro walked side by side on the path beside the stone river. It was already the end of autumn, and winter was peeking out. Steam rose from the surface of the stone river, and occasionally, white stripes jumped out of the water. The leaves were yellow, but the weeds on the ground were still growing lush. Fang Yan didn't pay attention to his surroundings. He focused all his attention on Yi Ro. He gathered his courage and held Yi Ro's little hand. After waiting for a long time, she didn't beat him up. He finally relaxed and whispered something to her. Yi Ro suddenly stopped. Because they were holding hands, when Yi Ro stopped, Fang Yan also stopped. Fang Yan raised his head and saw an old man walking toward him. It was an old man in a gray robe. He was hunched and walked slowly with a basket of dung. Seeing animal dung on the roadside, he stopped and shoveled the dung powder into the basket with the rake in his hand. His movements were very slow, and his expression was very solemn. It seemed that for him, shoveling dung was the most important thing in the world. After shoveling a pile of dung on the roadside, the old man picked up the basket again and walked toward Fang Yan. He raised his head and saw Fang Yan and Yi Ro, who had stopped moving forward. Yi Ro held Fang Yan's hand tightly. Fang Yan shook her hand back and told her that he was fine. Before they got close, they could smell the stench of animal dung. The teacher stood in front of Fang Yan and Yi Ro with the basket of dung in his hand. He looked at Yi Ro lovingly and said in a blaming tone, "Girl, why are you in such a hurry to break through at such a young age? Only by working steadily and laying a solid foundation can you be afraid that you can't peep into the way of heaven one day. The way of heaven is dark and far away, and ghosts and gods are obscure. You can't force it, and you can't force it. Do you remember?" Yi Ro bowed and thanked the teacher for his teaching. Chapter 676. "Thank you, sir," Yi Ro said with a clear voice and a respectful look. Sir was the village head of Swallow Dock and the most respected old man. He was highly respected and had many followers, including Fang Yan, who was also a fan of Sir. Sir blamed and reprimanded Yi Ro for her sudden breakthrough, which was a matter of course in everyone's eyes. Not only would you not be annoyed by it, but you would also feel deeply honored to be cared for. At least, that was what Yi Ro thought. Yi Ro knew that Fang Yan and Sir had a grudge against each other. Before the truth was revealed, the two parties were in a state of hostility. If Fang Yan and Sir had a conflict, she would choose to stand on Fang Yan's side without hesitation. If Fang Yan advanced, so did she. If Fang Yan fought, so did she. However, the person standing in front of her was Sir, the teacher of everyone in Swallow Dock. It had been a habit for a long time. What Sir says is right, what Sir wants to do is right. It is good for me that Sir cares about me. It is also good for me that Sir scolds me. All the people in Swallow Dock were proud to be taught or reprimanded by Sir. After decades of operation, Sir didn't deliberately do anything. Just like seeds would eventually sprout and tadpoles would eventually become frogs, Sir had become the oldest and most solid monument in Swallow Dock. Yi Ro didn't like Sir because Sir's disciple Bai Xiu killed Fang Yan's father. Yi Ro had to respect Sir, just like all the people in Swallow Dock had to respect Sir. That was a habit. It's a blessing and a tragedy for the Yi family to have you. Sir sighed and said, you have such a talent, but you were born in a little girl. I'm afraid the Yi family won't let you go easily, right? Yi Wenru didn't expect that her husband would talk about this topic with her. She blushed and her ears turned red, but she didn't show it on her face. She said indifferently, who knows what will happen in the future? Yes, who can say for sure what will happen in the future? The teacher grinned. His smile was kind and amiable, like an old man collecting dung in a village who was pleased and full of praise when he saw a promising young man. The boat will cross the bridge when it comes to it, you don't have to think too much. You failed the trial, but there were no repercussions. This meant that even the heavens were kind to you. Rest well. After accumulating strength, I'll once again pry into the heavenly Tao. Yes, sir, Yi Wen thanked him again. The teacher's gaze finally shifted to Fang Yan's face. It was not abrupt, nor was it strange. It was so natural. The smile on his face when he was facing Yi Ro was still there, so when he saw Fang Yan, there was still a smile on his face. However, the smile did not disappear immediately. Instead, it seemed to be spreading. Mr. Skin was pitch black, like the tree bark that could be seen everywhere by the stone river, or the already withered lumps of sheep dung. Because his skin was too dark, the wrinkles on his face didn't seem deep. His eyes were cloudy, and crisscrossing red blood vessels could be seen in the whites of his eyes. It gave people a sense of familiarity, but also made it difficult for people to get close to it. You're back. Mr. looked at Fang Yan and said. It was a normal greeting, just like how Fang Yan used to greet him countless times when he came back from outside. At that time, he might wear a gray robe and wander around the village. Most of the time, he would carry a dung basket and collect dung like today. The people of Swallow Dock raised countless pigs, cows, and sheep, and most of them were in a free-range state. However, it was rare to see animals' feces, urine, and other excreta inside or outside the village. It was because Swallow Dock had a sunset glow, poop shoveling brigade, headed by Mr., who had been doing the cleaning work in silence. When Fang Yan heard this question, he was extremely unwilling to accept it. He came back this time to see Mr. When he was in Huacheng, he had already started to conceive and plan all kinds of bloody battles when he returned and confronted Mr. What kind of face would Mr. put on, and how he should respond politely? What would Mr.'s first sentence say? He had to give a perfect answer and at the same time make the outside world think that he was a little persecuted man. For this reason, Li Xiaotian, Yi Fengsheng, and the others returned from Yanjing one by one to gather at Swallow Dock in order to show off their power. They did not give in even when they were threatened or even beaten by the elders of their families, just so that they could stand up at the critical moment and stand together with Fang Yan with passion and passion. They had already planned for so long and put in so much effort, but Mr. Was this his attitude? You should be angry, you should be furious, you should be shouting, you could hit people with a dung shovel. Or you could display the dignity and domineering aura of a superior, and then use the schemes and tricks you have cultivated for decades to ask me some sharp but deep questions. How could you do nothing? Did he break the stalemate between the two of them with just a simple, I'm back? I'm back, Fang Yan replied in a muffled voice. Because Mr. didn't play his cards according to common sense, he couldn't play the cards he had prepared. Mr. nodded and said, I heard from them that you were back a few days ago, and I thought you would go to find me right after. I haven't been to school these days, and I've been making big leaf tea several times a day, but I haven't seen you at all. What does that mean? Don't take it for granted. Fang Yan thought angrily. Fang Yan looked at Fang Yan and said, Do you want me to go, mister? Of course I want you to go, Mr. said. The later you go, the worse my character is in your eyes. The teacher looked around and said, Winter is coming. Before the heavy snow seals the mountain, the animals on the mountain will be more active. After picking up the dung in the afternoon, my throat is so thirsty that it's smoking. Mr. looked at Yi Ro and said, Ro, go back first. If you go back late, your family will be worried that they have been tricked by this guy to do bad things. As if he knew that Yi Ro would agree, he turned his eyes to Fang Yan again after saying that, and said, come with me. Let's have a private talk. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan, and Fang Yan nodded to her. Yi Ro still looked at Fang Yan, and Fang Yan said with a bitter smile, go back. Yi Ro nodded and said, I'll go back first. Yi Ro turned around and left, walking towards the village of Swallow Dock. Mr. also carried the dung basket and walked towards Swallow Dock, and Fang Yan followed him step by step. When they arrived at Mr.'s hut, Mr. poured the dung in the basket into the cesspool. The village was so backward that they didn't even use biogas. So after the dung fermented on its own, it was picked up by manpower, carried to the wheat field or the rape field, and sprinkled. Mr. threw the dung basket in the corner outside the courtyard, went to the yard to get a bucket of water to wash his hands and face, and then pushed open the wooden door, took the big enamel jar on the table, and gulped down a big mouthful of water. Then he seemed to think of Fang Yan again, and said, do you want to drink tea? Fang Yan refused and said, I've been taking tonic recently, and I'm afraid that the medicine has been neutralized. It's not convenient for me to drink tea. Mr. didn't insist, and said, it's said that you make good tea. Even Dao Ling, who has enjoyed a good life in the city, praises your tea skills. I've never had a chance to taste it. Fang Yan didn't respond. If he didn't solve the knot in his heart, he might not be able to make a pot of good tea for Mr. in his life. Mr. stood at the door with a tea jar in his hand, and Fang Yan stood outside in a white robe. There was only a door-sill between them. The light in the thatched cottage was dim, and Mr.'s face was hidden in this gloomy atmosphere. The sun was shining brightly outside, and Fang Yan, who was dressed in a white robe, looked handsome, like the golden sunlight in the sky, dazzling people's eyes. You came too late. Mr. looked at Fang Yan and said. Fang Yan nodded and said, maybe it's too early. I always feel that I'm not ready, and I want to spend more time with the people close to me. After all, I don't have any relatives by my side. You've always been a good child who values friendship and righteousness. Mr. praised. What you said is something that everyone should care about. In this world, there's nothing more important than this. Fang Yan's lips curled into a mocking smile, and he said, if you said that in the past, I would be proud for a long time. Even Mr. praised me, which proves that I must be such an outstanding person. And now? Now I feel that it's a great irony to me. Fang Yan said. You want me to come earlier? I want you to come earlier. You said that the later I come, the worse your character is in my heart. Fang Yan's eyes became sharp, and he stared coldly at Mr. standing in front of him, and said, are you so confident in your character? Mr. picked up the tea jar and drank a mouthful of tea, and said, there's hostility in your heart. That's murderous intent. Fang Yan said. 3 years ago, it was hostility, and after 3 years of digestion, it has long become murderous intent. You don't want to kill me. Mr. said. If you wanted to kill someone, you would have thought of a way to kill him. Mr. looked at Fang Yan, and said, conspiring, ambushing, poisoning, or any other method. These are all things that you, Fang Yan, can do. Chapter 677. However, you chose to meet me, Fang Yan, in the most primitive and foolish way, just like the other children. I've watched you grow up, so you shouldn't have any objections to what I'm saying, right? It's not just you, I've also watched your father, Fang Yixing, grow up from a naughty kid in open-crotch pants to a tall young man, and then become a husband and a father. You're not a person who likes to play cards according to common sense. For a person like you to suddenly play cards according to common sense, it proves that you're afraid of Fang Yan. You treat meeting me as a matter of life and death? Do you think I'll slap you to death in front of countless villagers? Fang Yen, what do you take me for? And what do you take Swallow Dock for? Sir's tone was very casual, and his expression was very calm. Sir did not show any anger or resentment, and he did not exude his domineering aura. Even his words were very simple and straightforward, and he would definitely not confuse you. Sir's words made you feel like an old farmer was talking to you, but every sentence and every word made Fang Yen feel very pressured. The reason why we fear a person is not because of what he says, but because of what kind of person he is. What kind of person was Sir? What kind of person is Sir? Fang Yen asked the biggest question in his heart. Sir held a large enamel jar and narrowed his eyes as he sized up Fang Yen, who was standing in the divine light. The young boy in the past had become handsome and elegant. In terms of temperament and demeanor, Fang Yen could be said to be the most handsome young man in Swallow Dock. Of course, the original most handsome young man, Bai Xiu, had been killed by Fang Yen. The greatest evil in life was to be an obstacle. If Bai Xiu had looked like Yi Fengsheng, he would still be living comfortably, right? If he didn't act so pretentiously. Sir looked at Fang Yen and asked softly, in your heart, what kind of person is Sir? Sir, I just want an answer, Fang Yen said. Like you, I also want an answer. Mr. stubbornly looked at Fang Yen and said, what kind of person are you, mister? I don't know. Fang Yen gritted his teeth. This answer doesn't match your style at all. The teacher shook his head and sighed. Fang Yen, ever since I've known you, have you ever said anything that you're afraid of? Is there anyone you don't dare to see? If there is. Fang Yan's smile was full of grief and indignation. Only you can do that, Sir. Only the person who loves me can hurt me the most, and being stabbed by the person I respect the most is even crueler. Swallow Dock was a special place, and it was also a place that people could be proud of. And Sir was Swallow Dock Sir, the pillar and totem in the hearts of countless people. For example, when Fang Yen brought Yi Fengsheng and Li Xiaotian to confront Jiang Junling at the Maple Leaf Club in Yanjing, he knew that if the situation was irreversible, Sir would definitely come out, and he really wanted to force Sir to come out. In the end, under the situation of being pressured from both inside and outside, Sir did come out, and he even used the red machine that he had been locked in an iron box. At that time, everyone thought that Fang Yen was in a weak position, but in fact, they had never thought that the real strong person was actually Fang Yen, and that Jiang Junling was the weak one. That night, it seemed that Fang Yen and his companions were the ones who were rejected and attacked by the crowd, but even if hundreds of people attacked together, what could they do to them? They couldn't win in an argument, and they couldn't win in a fight. What advantage did they have? Loss of reputation? Losing face? Come on, Fang Yen was originally an insignificant person at that time. What face did he have? What reputation did he have to lose? The one who truly lost face was Jiang Junling, and the one who truly lost his reputation was also Jiang Junling. Some people said that a person's opponent determined their height. Fang Yan's opponent was Jiang Junling, so everyone put him and Jiang Junling on the same level. Have you considered Jiang Junling's feelings? It was just like how some small celebrities who had just made their debut had to rely on Lu Dehua or Xia Chen to create hype, saying that they wanted to surpass Lu Dehua and that they wanted to soak up Xia Chen. Have you considered the feelings of Lu Dehua and Xia Chen? That was a marketing campaign, a self-marketing campaign for Fang Yan's position. It was also a scheme to force the Jiang family to give up their position. If it wasn't for some people realizing the seriousness of the problem, Yi Daoling would be sitting in the position of the Jiang family, and with the Jiang family sitting in this position, Fang Yan's days would be even worse. What kind of person was Fang Yan? Things had only started to take shape, but he had already completed the entire plan and guided it. Yi Fengsheng, Li Xiaotian, Wan Xian, and the others who stood behind him, some of them understood at the time, and some of them only understood afterwards. No matter what, they were willing to advance and retreat together with Fang Yan. Otherwise, with Fang Yan's personality, he would definitely turn around and run when he realized that he was about to suffer a loss. A music addict can't eat. Who would be willing to bear the siege of hundreds of people for a woman? The one who set up the stage was Fang Yan, and the one who acted was also Fang Yan. However, the final director was Mr. Fang Yan, who was far away in Swallow Dock. The reason why Fang Yan dared to cause such a huge disaster and dared to ignore the enmity of the Jiang family and all of the wealthy families in Beijing was also because he had Swallow Dock and Mr. However, could the current Mr. still support him? Could he trust him like a totem engraved on his soul? Mr. was silent for a long time, then said, Fang Yan, I heard that you broke through again in Huacheng and comprehended the Tai Chi light that is rarely seen in 100 years. That is also thanks to Mr.'s good disciple, Bai Xiu. Most of this is due to his efforts. Fang Yan said with a face full of sarcasm, if he and Jiang Junling hadn't worked together to set up that sure-kill trap, if he hadn't used the thunderclap sword to attract the lightning, if he hadn't forced me into desperate straits with that old man Song Zaniang time and time again, if it hadn't been for him, how could I have had the chance to break through again? Actually, Fang Yan was lying. The reason why he comprehended the Tai Chi light was mainly because he was forced by the Blade Monarchs, chopping wood blade. When he comprehended the Tai Chi light, Bai Xiu had not yet appeared, and neither had the phoenix. Thinking of the phoenix, Fang Yan's heart bled. These bastards, why did they have to drag those innocent people into this? Thinking of the phoenix heartbroken because of this and how she cut off her mortal roots to escape to Buddhism, Fang Yan's heart was filled with anger. The phoenix hated. She hated how fate played tricks on her. Fang Yan also hated. He hated how those conspirators had ruthlessly manipulated their fates. Bai Xiu, Jiang Junling, the Yin family, and perhaps even Mr. were all sinners. Mr. was finally angry. Fang Yan rarely saw Mr. angry. Even if a student in the academy did something terribly wrong, he would just keep a straight face and slap them. But at this moment, Mr. frowned. His eyebrows furrowed so deeply that his thick eyebrows turned into curved black silkworms. Mr. stared at Fang Yan with a burning gaze. His eyes, which had always been dispirited and depressed, flashed with a frightening brilliance. He said in a low voice, "You just want an answer, right?" "Yes." Fang Yan said. "I also need to ask Mr. to give justice to my dead father. Otherwise, the dead will not be able to rest in peace, and the living will not be able to rest in peace." "Fine. I will give you justice," Mr. said. He held the jar in one hand and raised the other, fiercely chopping toward Fang Yan's face. Palm as a sword. Thunderclap sword. After leaving Mr.'s sight, Yi Ro's footsteps became hurried. She didn't return to her Yi family because she knew Yi Fengsheng wasn't home. She walked along the stone river all the way to the Ruan family at the entrance of the village. Sure enough, before she got close, she heard the laughter of young people inside. Yi Ro appeared at the entrance of the courtyard and saw Li Xiaotian and Wan Qian wrestling. The others were holding a wine pot, lying down or sitting, and were still fiercely discussing who would win and who would lose. "I'm betting on Xiaotian. Xiaotian's Kung Fu foundation is not bad, although he has put on a little weight after becoming a businessman. If it was before, I would definitely bet on Xiaotian, but now I'm betting on Wan Qian. Wan Qian is always by Uncle Ye's side. With Uncle Ye's strict attitude toward the people around him, it would be hard for him not to risk his life. Look at Uncle Dong Hai. I didn't think much of his Kung Fu before, but after following third uncle for a few years, he has become a first-class expert. The last time my dad saw him, he said his Kung Fu had reached a higher level." Yi Fengsheng's eyes were sharp. When he saw Yi Ro standing at the door, he quickly jumped up to greet her and said, "Sister, why are you here? Didn't you go to the Stone River with Fang Huohua for a walk?" The others also stood up. Wang Kaixian looked at Yi Ro with a smile and said, "Originally, they wanted to follow and peep, but I forcefully stopped them. I say, they're a couple talking about love, so why are you people going over to join in the fun?" If it was before, Wang Kaixian and Li Xiaotian wouldn't dare to speak to Yi Ro in such a tone. Because according to Yi Ro's character, they were likely to be beaten black and blue by Yi Ro before they could finish a joke. It wasn't that Yi Ro's character had changed, it was mainly that Yi Ro's identity had changed. Now, Yi Ro was his brother's woman. If he made a joke with his brother's woman, wouldn't it mean that everyone was close and liked her? Sure enough, Yi Ro didn't hit them this time. Yi Ro looked at Yi Fengxing and said, "Fang Yan went to see Sir. F***ck. Yi Fengxing threw the wine bottle in his hand out, smashing it on the wall and breaking it. He cursed, "This bastard, son of a bitch, we agreed to go together. How can he be so untrustworthy?" Chapter 678. This bastard, son of a bitch, we agreed to go together. How can he not keep his word? This time, Yi Fengxing, Wang Kaixian, and the others were really angry. They had clearly agreed to go see teacher together, so why did he quietly run off alone? This kind of behavior was much more serious than saying that they would grow old together, but you secretly went to bake oil. Exactly. What kind of logic is that? Wang Kaixian was so angry that he stomped his feet and cursed. Fang Yan, that be asterisk starred, pushing us once is what he should do. Pushing us twice is due to our friendship. Pushing us 3 or 4 times means that he doesn't treat us as brothers. We have treated him with sincerity. What does he mean by doing this? Yi Ro frowned slightly. She didn't like it when others scolded Fang Yan. No matter what the reason was, he didn't like her. Don't get excited. Let's listen to what Gentle has to say. Chen Yanqing was experienced and prudent. She stood out and said that to smooth things over. You still don't understand what happened? Why are you all cursing and swearing? Li Xiaotian and Wan Xian also let go of each other. They stopped wrestling and gathered around to listen to Yi Ro. Yi Ro nodded to Chen Yanqing to express her gratitude and said, "Fang Yan and I met Mr. Yi when we were walking by Shihizi. Mr. Yi asked me to come back and ask Fang Yan to go back with him. You can't be thinking of silencing me, right?" Yi Fengxing asked with a pale face. "Let's **ck this thing up." Li Xiaotian was rather agitated. He rushed to the corner of the wall and took out a broadsword. Although the Li family was good at using fists, it was not a problem to have a broadsword to defend themselves. It also looked more threatening. As for whether the teacher would buy it or not, that would be another matter. Chen Yanqing looked at Yi Ro and said, "Ro, you haven't recovered yet. You'd better go back and rest. Rest assured, as long as we're still alive, we won't let Fang Yan suffer any losses." Yes. I don't believe that Mr. can single-handedly wipe out all of us. Ruan Jing roared, his face red. It was quite interesting for a delicate and gentle man to shout such hot-blooded words. Yi Ro refused and said, "I'll go with you." "Sis, your body." Yi Fengxing tried to persuade her further. "I won't do anything. I'll just watch from the side," Yi Wen said. Watching is also a form of strength. If there were more witnesses, you wouldn't have gone too far with Fang Yan. I understand. Yi Fengxing nodded. Let's go find Sir. Let's go see Fang Yan, Chen Yanqing said. Thus, the group of youngsters ran towards the entrance of Swallow's Dock where the teacher lived. As they ran, they shouted loudly at the yards they passed. A life for a life, a debt must be paid back. Mr. wants to see Fang Yan. Mr. wants to see Fang Yan. Everyone, come and take a look. Sir said that he will give justice to Fang Yan. As they ran, the gates of the courtyard were opened one after another. Some of the gates were open, and people ran out of the courtyard. More gates were closed at an even faster speed. It was better not to get involved in some things. When they ran to the Fang family's house, Yi Fengxing turned a corner, trotted through the hall, and ran to the backyard. He shouted to Fang Hui, who was sitting in the yard drinking tea, "Grandpa, Grandpa, Fang Yan went to see Sir. Sir wants Fang Yan to see him. Where's the thing you prepared?" Fang Hui was stunned for a moment, then he laughed and said, in the second drawer of the mahogany cabinet in my room. You can use it. Yi Fengxing rushed into Fang Hui's room and rummaged through it. Soon, he came out with something. He shook his fat butt and ran outside, saying, "Grandpa, you don't have to come here. We're here." His voice faded away, and before he finished speaking, he had already disappeared. Fang Hui sat in the yard in silence for a long time. He said to the King Kong eagle, who was looking around curiously, "It's a little late, but it still came out." "Sir." He sighed and turned his wheelchair in circles in the yard. Fang Yan had never fought with Sir. Fang Yan had never even seen Sir in action. However, Fang Yan knew that Sir must be an expert. How could Sir, who could cultivate an expert like Bai Xiu, be mediocre? Fang Yan and Bai Xiu had fought before, and Bai Xiu's swordsmanship had reached the highest level of profound meaning. Fang Yan had only heard from the elders of Swallow Dock that Sir was an expert in swordsmanship, and that his thunderclap sword was impenetrable. However, Sir had also said to the elders in the village that Bai Xiu was an expert in swordsmanship, and that he was superior to him. Then, whether the master was stronger than the disciple, or the disciple had surpassed the master, was unknown. However, it was conceivable that the master and disciple were both masters of swordsmanship. Sir didn't use a sword, but his hand was the sword. The sword swung out, plain and indifferent. There was no rolling energy, no thunder or lightning. It was as if he wasn't using the thunderclap sword, but the soul-vanishing saber. However, Fang Yan knew that Sir was using the thunderclap sword. The true profound meaning of the thunderclap sword lay in silent thunder. Bai Xiu's sword swung out, thunder rose, the momentum was huge, and the sword chi was overbearing. Bai Xiu gained the upper hand with a show of strength, but he also lost because he exposed too much. Sir's sword was plain and simple. You didn't know where you would be shocked, and you didn't know where the thunder was. However, you knew that the thunder would definitely detonate. Just like the last move that Fang Yan used in the battle with Bai Xiu, hidden thunder, sword not shocking thunder, but person shocking thunder. The most exquisite part was that it was hidden and ready to strike at any moment. That was the sword that Bai Xiu used with all his strength, and it was also his last life-saving move. In Bai Xiu's view, that sword could be his trump card. Of course, that sword really caused great trouble for Fang Yan. Fang Yan caught the lightning in the air and was almost blown to pieces by it. However, Sir used his palm as a sword and casually used such a move. This big liar. Fang Yan thought in grief and indignation. He even said, Bai Xiu is better at the sword than me. In order to make his disciple proud, he went against his conscience and said such irresponsible words. If he had known that Sir was so powerful, Fang Yan would have pretended to be dead when he met Sir just now. Or he would have sent his girlfriend home first, then hid in the Yi residence and not come out until his body recovered or the Taiji heart appeared again. With Fang Yan's current state, it would be very difficult to take this sword. However, with Fang Yan's current state of mind, he would take this sword even if he died. Things had already come to this, and he couldn't take even half a step back. Fang Yan's footwork came from the self-created drunken crane riding the wind, a genius of a generation, the old drunkard Mo Qingdi. Fang Yan's body became blurred, and under the sunlight appeared 1 Fang Yan, 2 Fang Yan, 3 Fang Yan, and countless Fang Yan. With the naked eye, it was densely packed with Fang Yan. Fang Yan thought that since he couldn't beat him, he would use a superior body movement to avoid this killer move, waste some time, and then find a chance to turn the tables. Just like when he dueled with the Tao addict, Song Zhansheng. As long as he didn't die, as long as he was alive, he would definitely find a chance to fight back. Fang Huohuo was good at this. Fang Yan's speed was at the extreme. He felt that he had turned into a bolt of lightning. Boom! He felt his chest tighten, and then his body rose into the air and flew backward. When he was still flying in the air, he spat out a mouthful of blood. It was just like the 72 transformations of Sun Wukong. With a single somersault cloud, he could travel 108,000 li. No matter how he flew, he still couldn't escape from Buddha Rolai's grasp. Fang Yen was Sun Wukong, and Mr. was Buddha Rolai. Fang Yen still couldn't dodge. Clang! Fang Yan's body fell heavily on the hard stone ground, and then rolled backward. Bang! Fang Yan's body slammed heavily against the wall of the courtyard, and only then did he manage to stop with difficulty. He propped up his body with both hands, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and looked at Teacher, who stood still inside the door, with a face full of surprise. Too strong. Teacher was too strong. Because of the moving mountain, Fang Yan's body still couldn't recover, and the heart of Tai Chi was in a dead fetus state. However, this didn't mean that Fang Yan didn't have any fighting ability. Without the heart of Tai Chi, Fang Yan was still a first-class master in Swallow Dock. Even if he fought with someone like Yi Daoling, he wouldn't let the other party gain any advantage. However, when facing Teacher, he didn't have any power to fight back. Teacher slashed out with his sword, and Fang Yan used all his means but still couldn't escape. This wasn't just a gap in strength, but a gap in realm. Teacher was still standing inside the door, still standing in the shadow of the hut. Fang Yan was lying outside the hut, lying under the warm sunlight. His clothes were dyed red with blood, and the corners of his mouth were stained with blood, making him look a little embarrassed. Fang Yan looked at Teacher in disbelief and said, "Why is it like this? Why is the gap so big? Fang Yan, don't you understand?" Teacher looked at Fang Yan and said. One of his hands was still holding the enamel jar, and there was still half a jar of big leaf tea in it. During the course of their battle, not a single drop of tea spilled out. "I don't understand," Fang Yan said. He didn't understand, nor did he want to understand. He was the young genius of Swallow Dock, the target of countless praises. He had worked so hard, breaking through again and again. He had just comprehended the light of Tai Chi. Although he could not use the heart of Tai Chi in this battle, he, who had lost the heart of Tai Chi, was so vulnerable. "Realm," Teacher said. "Realm." Fang Yan had an ominous feeling. He stared coldly at Teacher and asked, "Is Teacher at the Heavenly Tao Realm?" Chapter 679. What was the Heavenly Tao Realm? Such a state was difficult to describe with words. It could only be explained with examples. Black Dragon, one of the Hua Xia 3 dragons, was at the Heavenly Tao Realm. Divine Dragon, one of the Hua Xia 3 dragons, was at the Heavenly Tao Realm. At his peak, Mo Qingdi was also at the Heavenly Tao Realm. In a place like Swallow Dock where experts gathered, Mo Qingdi had suppressed all the elites of Swallow Dock to the point of suffocation after he reached the Heavenly Tao Realm. And he was known as the #1 martial artist in Swallow Dock for 100 years. He was the most talented and heaven-defying existence. That also meant that Swallow Dock, which specialized in martial arts, had only produced Mo Qingdi in 100 years. He was the only Heavenly Tao Realm expert. But even so, it was enough to make the people of Swallow Dock feel that it was an impressive matter. From this, it could be seen how rare Heavenly Tao Realm experts were. They were gods and warriors, but they were far removed from the pugilistic world. Have you ever seen a divine dragon compete with other martial artists for supremacy? Have you ever seen Black Dragon appear in the mortal world? Have you ever seen Mo Qingdi be considered a Heavenly Tao Realm expert who was closer to the people? Of course, that was a lifestyle he began after his tendons were maimed by Divine Dragon. Back when he was still a Heavenly Tao Realm expert, he was best at roaming the world alone with a sword. He would rid the world of injustice and challenge all the experts in the world, such as challenging the Japanese 36 islands. Even now, Japanese warriors would gnash their teeth at the mention of Mo Qingdi, treating it as a great humiliation. However, no one had ever told Fang Yan that Mr. was a Heavenly Tao Realm expert. His grandfather, Fang Hui, had never said it. His senior brother, Old Drunkard, had never said it. No one in Swallow Dock had said it. If Mr. wasn't a Heavenly Tao Realm expert, then what was the difference in realm between them? If Mr. was a Heavenly Tao Realm expert, How could such a shocking matter be hidden from everyone? How could it be hidden from Emochingdi's eyes? Mr. is at the heavenly Tao realm? Only the heavens knew what Fang Yen was feeling when he asked this question. He felt aggrieved as though he had kicked a metal plate, but more of it was a sense of helplessness. If Mr. was at the heavenly Tao realm, what was the point of his return other than inviting humiliation? The answer he wanted, the so-called truth, would probably be drowned by Mr.'s might? Heavenly Tao realm? The gentleman's face revealed a ruminative expression as he said with uncertainty, I'm not at the heavenly Tao realm. No? Fang Yen felt relieved. In the past, Fang Yen felt that the stronger Mr. was, the better. It would be best if he was the strongest in the universe. Even if Ultraman or Transformers came, they wouldn't be able to defeat him. Right now, he didn't want Mr. to be too strong. If Mr. was too strong, to the point of being a heavenly Tao realm expert, he would never be able to avenge his father's death, right? No. The teacher seemed to have finally figured it out. His attitude became firm as he said, I had one foot in it, but I found it boring, so I pulled it back. Fang Yan's heart suddenly became sluggish, as if someone had used a heavy object to hit him. His face was also burning with pain. One of his feet had stepped in, and then he pulled it back on his own. Did he think that the heavenly axiom was a zoo in a shopping mall? Fang Yan had yet to find the critical point for a breakthrough, nor did he know what it was like to climb the heavenly axiom. Old Drunkard had never discussed such topics with him. Instead, from Yi Gentle's description, the heavenly axiom was a state of mind after accumulating strength. The heavenly axiom was a process of breaking through oneself, as well as a process of finding oneself. Of course, most importantly, the heavenly axiom was a process of forgetting oneself and wholeheartedly serving the Tao. A pure land, a smile, a mortal fate. A thought, a tranquility, a lotus blooming in the heart. Let there be nothing else in your world except the heavenly axiom. Yi Gentle's shackles were due to her deep feelings, so it affected her advancement into the heavenly axiom. However, because she couldn't bear to sever her ties with Fang Yen, not only did she fail the challenge, she even suffered a backlash from the heavenly axiom. She was possessed by a mental demon, and was nearly burned to death by the volcano in her body. Because Fang Yen had risked his life to save her, Yi Gentle had escaped the calamity. Even so, her body was still weak, and it was difficult for her to move. This was the truth of the heavenly axiom, and this was the power of the heavenly axiom. How powerful was Mr. to be able to move freely within the heavenly axiom and leave at any time? If someone else had said this to me, I would have thought they were crazy. Fang Yen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said aloud. But coming from Mr.'s mouth, I believe it. Mr. smiled indifferently and said, Little brat, you have confidence in me on this point. But, this won't do. Mr. said. I still want justice. Fang Yen held onto the wall with one hand and climbed up from the ground. Mr. frowned and looked at Fang Yen and said, What if I don't give you an answer today? Then I'll stand here. Fang Yen said in a deep voice, I'll stand here and be beaten to death by you. Is there a meaning? Mr.'s frown deepened, and even his face became serious. It was as if, in his opinion, Fang Yan's choice was an extremely stupid thing to do. There's a meaning, Fang Yen said with incomparable firmness. I can't kill you, I can't get the answer, but I can tarnish you. I'll tarnish you with my death. Tarnish your reputation, tarnish your credibility, tarnish your image, tarnish the totem of Swallow Dock. Every time people mention you, they will think of you killing a talented young man. For the sake of your murderous disciple, you killed another student of Swallow Dock. Your image will collapse, your credibility will be ruined, and your authority will be questioned. Whether people say it out loud or not, everyone will think that you're a murderer in their hearts. This is your revenge? Mr.'s face was so gloomy that water could almost be squeezed out of it. He said, This is your revenge against the enemy who killed your father? This is the way you, Fang Yen, handle things when you're in a crisis? Fang Yen, you usually boast that you're a rare smart person, but your performance today is simply disappointing. Such a Fong Yen, I might as well kill you with my sword. Fong Yen walked towards Mr. step by step and said with a smile, "What can I do? What can I do? You're Mr., the person I respected the most apart from my grandfather, the person I thought was the strongest apart from the old drunkard. When I was very young, I called you Mr. I wanted you to be my master. When I grew up, I wanted to go to school and become a teacher. I wanted to inherit your legacy. Although none of my wishes came true, you're still the Mr. in my heart. I thought to myself, all the teachers in the world should be like you." Later on, when I went to Huacheng and became a teacher by chance, it was also because I was subconsciously influenced by you. I thought that since I couldn't be Swallow Doc's Mr., it would be good to be the teacher of other children. In the end, there would be some resemblance to you. There would always be some areas where I would look up to you. Look, you have such a place in my heart. How could I use such a method to deal with you? You're right. I'm a person who doesn't like to play by the rules. I can use crafty plots against you, I can ambush you, poison you, or any other method. I have 10,000 ways to take revenge. But that person is you, Mr. from Swallow Dock. That's why I'm not willing to do that. The general dismounts the horse, the prime minister alights the palanquin. Ever since I was young, my grandfather said this to me. Although I didn't quite understand what it meant, I subconsciously felt proud of these words. Swallow Dock has its pride to protect, and Mr. has his reputation to protect. I'm a member of Swallow Dock, and I'm proud of this collective. I don't want to be an exception to this collective, and I don't want to be its disgrace. That's why I came back openly, and I stand in front of you openly." Mr.'s brows finally relaxed. His eyes looked thoughtfully at Fong Yen, who was walking towards him step by step. "Mr., please give me an answer." Fong Yen stood at the door, stood in front of Mr., and said aloud. Mr. stood outside the door, and he and Mr. were only separated by a doorsill. "Mr., please give me an answer." Fong Yen pleaded. "By Xiao, why did he kill my father?" Mr. held the enamel jar in one hand, and his other hand turned into a sword again. Thunderclap sword. "Stop!" A coarse voice roared. "You old man, stop!" The man's angry voice rang out. Even in his angry state, he didn't dare to curse in front of Mr. From this, it could be seen how deep Mr.'s prestige was. "Mr., what are you doing? Let's talk this out," Chen Yanqing said with a smile. As a civil servant in the ministry, he had practiced not to get angry easily during his work. As they spoke, a group of young people ran in front of Fong Yen, using their fat or thin bodies to block in front of Mr. Yi Fengsheng, Li Xiaotian, Chen Yanqing, Wang Kaixian, Wan Xian, except for Zhu Ziden, who was far away in the North Sea, Swallow Dock's number 1 male heavenly group, Hua Meinan, were all here, blocking in front of Fong Yen. Yi Ro rushed over, and saw the blood on Fong Yan's face, the dust on his back, and the dent in the wall. Her expression was cold, but she didn't say anything. She only walked to Fong Yan's side, stretched out her small hand, and held Fong Yan's blood-stained hand. Fong Yen wanted to break free, but she held on tightly. When Fong Yen exerted force, she also exerted force. She used her small action to express to Fong Yen that wherever he was, she would be there. Chapter 680. The Mr. looked at Yi Fengsheng, Li Xiaotian, and the others who had hurried over, and said with a smile, "I knew you little brats had returned, but you were always hiding and refusing to show your faces. Mr. is no longer qualified to be your Mr. You didn't even greet Mr. when you returned? What? Were you waiting for today to show me who I was? How could that be? We came back a few days ago, but not because we didn't want to visit Mr., but because Li Xiaotian was sick. Yes, Li Xiaotian was very sick. We have been staying by his side these few days, afraid that something might happen to him." Yi Fengsheng's face was full of awkwardness, and he said, "We didn't come to show you who you are. In our Swallow Dock, who can show you who you are? We just heard that you wanted to give justice to Fang Yan, so we came to see. Yes, yes. Li Xiaotian also nodded, and said, I was sick some time ago, very sick. We all believe that Mr. is fair and just in handling matters. Chen Yanqing looked at the Mr. with a smile, and said, in all these years, I have never heard of Mr. wrongly accusing anyone. The Mr. laughed heartily, and put down the sword in his hand. Looking at the group of young people from Swallow Dock who kept flattering him, he said with a smile, you all put one hat on my head after another, but it is because you don't trust me enough, right? You say that I am fair and just in handling matters, but that is because you are worried that I am not fair and just in the matter of Fang Yan. You say that I have not wrongly accused anyone all these years, but you are worried that I have wrongly accused someone in the matter of Fang Yan. The smile on the Mister's face froze, and he looked at Fang Yan and the others with a serious voice, and said, what if I say that I do not give you an explanation this time? All the young people were dumbfounded. They had thought of Mister's reaction, but they did not expect Mister to have such a reaction. What kind of attitude was this? Was this not a hooligan? If Fang Yan or any of them were hooligans, they would feel that it was natural, but when Mister acted like a hooligan, it was hard to accept. Mister, what do you mean? Yi Fengxing asked. What I mean is, the matter could have been solved in another way, the teacher said. For example? Yi Fengxing asked. For example, if I cut Fang Yan in half, or if Fang Yan cuts me in half, what do you think? That's not good, Yi Fengxing said. Sir, we just want an answer. Why can't you just tell us directly? Mister's face was full of anger, as if he had been greatly insulted. He stared coldly at Fang Yan and asked, since you just want to know an answer, why can't you come and ask me directly? Fang Yan's expression froze as he looked at the teacher in surprise. You came back 8 days ago at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, didn't you? Yes, Yi Fengxing replied softly. When they came back, he took a look at the time. They came back at that time. Teacher's village was at the easternmost part of the village, which was also at the entrance of the village. When they came back, they made such a big noise. It was impossible that teacher didn't hear it. It was not surprising that Monsieur should know when they would be back. Did someone tie your hands and feet to prevent you from coming? Teacher asked again. No, Li Xiaotian said. Did someone gag your mouth to prevent you from making a sound? No. I'm not at home. On a long journey? Sir, since no one. Teacher's expression became extremely dignified, and his voice became extremely serious. He said, then, tell me, why did you wait until now to find me? Why do you have to make things so complicated? Why do you have to make such a big scene? Teacher, we are just. Chen Yanqing wanted to explain, but the truth was right in front of them. They had returned a long time ago, and had been back for a long time. However, they did not think of asking teacher, and even deliberately avoided teacher. They did not want teacher to see them return. They wanted to stand out at a crucial moment and give teacher a fatal blow. They thought that teacher was guilty. Although the truth had not been revealed, they already thought that teacher was the mastermind behind Bai Xiu's death. He was the one who instructed and manipulated Bai Xiu to kill Fang Yixing, and then prepared to kill Fang Yan. Yes, that was what they thought in their hearts. Otherwise, why would they be afraid of teacher? After teacher took Fang Yan away, why would they be so anxious? In your hearts, I am the murderer, I am the sinner, I am the enemy that you are about to face. Should I feel very embarrassed? Should I feel very embarrassed? Teacher looked at Fang Yan and said. What is this place? This is Swallow Dock. This is the Swallow Dock where the general dismounts the horse and the prime minister alights. Who am I? I am the teacher of this Swallow Dock. When each of you was born, I went to your home to visit you, and held you in my arms. From the time you started to read 100 family names and rules for disciples, I was already your teacher. Fang Yan, didn't you become a teacher in Huacheng? Didn't you achieve some good results? Who was the one who first nurtured and guided you in your knowledge of ancient literature? Ruan Xian, you are now Dao Mausoleum's secretary. Who was the one who first let you carefully study game theory? Li Xiaotian, you are now a businessman. When you were young, you were naughty and mischievous. Who was the one who said that your natural disposition was to be temporarily recorded? Now that you have grown up and each of you has your own achievements and career, you are now beginning to question whether your teacher is a murderer or the culprit of the murder case. Teacher looked at Fang Yan and said, Fang Yan, if you came to me on the afternoon 8 days ago, on the night you came back, and you asked for an answer, and you asked for justice, would I have rejected you? I was worried. Fang Yan said honestly. Since everyone had already spoken, there was no need for him to hide anything. I was worried that teacher was no longer teacher. That's right. Because you were worried that teacher was no longer teacher, you delayed it day after day. You came back in groups, wanting to make a big deal out of it. You wanted everyone in Swallow Dock to see it. You were worried that teacher was being unfair. You were worried that I would speak up for Bai Xiu and wronged you. Teacher was in a bad mood. With an angry tone, he said, Fang Yan, on the afternoon you came back, I was waiting for you in this thatched hut. I didn't wait for you that afternoon. I didn't wait for you that night. I didn't wait for you the next day. I didn't wait for you the third day. If I hadn't coincidentally met you at the Stone River today, I'm afraid you wouldn't have come to see me today, right? When we exchanged blows just now, I knew that your body hadn't recovered yet. You couldn't use the heart of Tai Chi now you are at your weakest. How would Fang Yan dare to meet the enemy who killed his father at this time? Am I right? Yes. Fang Yan gritted his teeth and said. From the beginning of that incident, I have been waiting for you in Swallow Dock. Do you know? I don't know. Fang Yan said. I didn't expect Bai Xiu to appear in Huacheng. I also didn't expect Bai Xiu to join forces with Jiang Junling to kill me. I never expected Bai Xiu to tell me in front of so many people that my father was killed by him. Teacher, Bai Xiu is your disciple. He is a student that you have groomed. You treat him like your own son. He is my father's enemy who killed my father. How do you want me to look at you? How do you want me to look at you? Teacher, you are teacher. You are omnipotent and omniscient. In all of Swallow Dock, what can hide from your eyes? Can you tell us that you have no idea that Bai Xiu did such a terrible thing? Teacher looked at Fang Yan and said, what if I tell you that I really didn't know? Then teacher has failed in his duty. Fang Yan said. Although he still didn't believe teacher's words, he felt as if a huge stone had been lifted from his heart. He didn't want teacher and Bai Xiu to be the same kind of people, even though this was a little self-deceiving. If teacher and Bai Xiu were the same kind of people, this would be a big problem. This situation was really too big. I did not teach my students well. This is indeed my failure. Teacher nodded sincerely and said. Teacher looked at Yi Fengsheng and the others and said, you came here in a group. Are you trying to force teacher Gong again? Is he not going to give you an answer today? Teacher. Yi Fengsheng said a little embarrassedly, I've already said that we are here to watch the show. However, we still hope that teacher can explain things clearly to Fang Yan. It's just a matter of a few words. Hiding things here and there will easily cause misunderstandings. It will also affect teacher's wise and powerful image in our hearts. Don't you think so? Teacher looked at the banner in Yi Fengsheng's hand and said, what is this? That. Yi Fengsheng wanted to hide the banner in his hand and said, it's nothing. I just wrote a poem. It's nothing much. I don't want to embarrass myself in front of teacher. Let me see, teacher said. Teacher, it's better not. Yi Fengsheng looked like he was in a difficult position. Teacher extended his hand to Yi Fengsheng and said, give it to me. Yi Fengsheng glanced at Fang Yan, and Fang Yan nodded at him. Only then did Yi Fengsheng reluctantly hand the AM in his hand to teacher. Teacher unfolded the banner. On it was a line of blood-red words, Murderer Bai Xiu. Teacher became silent, as if he was carefully appreciating the structure of the words on the banner. After a long time, he sighed softly and said, Hu Wei was smart his whole life, but he also wasted his whole life. Chapter 681. The teacher sighed softly and said, Hu Wei was smart his whole life, but he also wasted his whole life. Hearing the teacher's evaluation of his grandfather, Fang Yan was a little unhappy. He said, What do you mean wasted his whole life? Fang's Tai Chi originally walked the path of extreme ease and softness. Because of your grandfather's personality, it was said to be hard Tai Chi. If he could achieve success on this path and bring the hard Tai Chi to greater heights, it would be a great thing to establish a sect. Since he chose the right path, he practiced hard on this path. In the end, your grandfather went astray again and wanted to use tricks to replace hard work. In the end, he stood out because he was focused on seeking the Tao. He became a rare Heaven Tao master in Swallow Fort. Hu Wei could create his own hard Tai Chi. How could his talent be worse than Qin Shaoxing? Why did he work hard all his life but never become one of the top masters? It was because he thought too much. There are some things that can't be taken shortcuts. Also, he was originally one of the top masters in the Jianghu. In order to revitalize the Fang family, he chose to be the guard of the old people behind the Red Wall. This was a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing was that he expanded the Fang family's connections. The bad thing was that he delayed his main business and lost his drive. With those old people, no matter how bad Hu Wei's temper was, he couldn't speak in a rough voice. Can a martial artist without a temper be considered a good martial artist? His heart is higher than the sky, but his life is thinner than paper. Hu Wei was ambitious and capable. Why did the Fang family end up in the hands of Qin Shaoxing? It was because Hu Wei was smart. Relying on this intelligence, he thought more than others. In this world, most successful people are actually stubborn people. They are a little paranoid and don't know how to be flexible. Once they are certain about something, they grit their teeth and don't let it go. Sometimes, being smart can lead people astray. The teacher didn't want to explain too much. He rolled up the white scroll in his hand and said to Yi Fengsheng, Since Fengsheng took it out, why don't you give it to me? I think it was originally for me to see, right? Yi Fengsheng didn't dare to disobey and said, Since you like it, then take it. The teacher nodded and said, I'll take it. If you don't want to bully others with martial arts and fight with me, then leave. It's none of your business here. He then looked at Yi Ro and said, You little girl, I told you to go back and rest. Why did you come out again? I'm worried about him. Yi Ro looked at the man and said. She was neither servile nor overbearing, neither shy nor secretive. This was exactly what she was thinking in her heart, so she said it openly. The teacher liked this side of Yi Ro very much. He comforted her and said, Go back. He'll be fine. Thank you, sir, Yi Ro said gratefully. He gently squeezed Fang Yan's hand and took the lead to leave. Yi Fengsheng and the others looked at each other and followed behind Yi Wen. Very soon, only Fang Yan's lonely figure was left in the courtyard. The teacher looked at Fang Yan and said, Come in. After saying that, he stepped aside from the doorsill. Fang Yan did not hesitate and stepped through the door. Clang! The teacher closed the wooden door, and the room fell into a state of semi-darkness. The teacher walked to his old recliner and sat down. He looked at Fang Yan and said, Sit if you want to, or stand if you don't. Fang Yan thought for a while and decided to stand. If the teacher suddenly attacked him, it would be easier for him to defend or escape. The teacher held the enamel jar and took a big sip of the big leaf tea. He looked at Fang Yan, who was standing in front of him, and said, Fang Yan, you have your position, and I have mine. My disciple admitted that he killed your father, so it's natural for you to be vigilant and resentful toward me, the teacher. Because no one can guarantee that the next disaster won't happen to them. However, from my position, I think it's a misunderstanding and an insult to me. Is the facade of Swallow Dock so worthless? Is the teacher's character so unworthy of your trust for once? Times have changed, and the interests people seek are also different. However, no matter how many scoundrels have come from Swallow Dock, there will always be some people who fight for the facade of Swallow Dock, for the names on the stone monument at the gate of Swallow Dock, and for the tombs on Green Mountain, both old and new. There will always be some people who regard the existence of Swallow Dock as more important than their own lives, and regard the glory of Swallow Dock as more important than their own honor. You have humiliated and humiliated me, so what is the point of playing this game? It's just for an answer, Fang Yen said again. Being criticized by the teacher, Fang Yen suddenly felt that the things he had always believed in seemed to have become illusory. Very quickly, he expelled this kind of bad thought from his mind. He was seeking justice for his father, and he was seeking justice for the Fang clan. He had done nothing wrong, he had done nothing wrong. He was the victim, and he should be the righteous one, not the old man sitting in front of him. Even if what the old man said was somewhat reasonable, it couldn't cover up the fact that his disciple had killed someone. I'll tell you, I don't know anything. The teacher looked at Fang Yen and said, "Do you believe me?" Fang Yen thought for a moment and said, "I'm willing to believe it, and I hope it's true, but I don't think I'm so sure." "So, what I say is no longer important, is it?" The teacher said to Fang Yen. "So, does the teacher mean that the matter should be left unsettled?" Fang Yen found it hard to accept such an outcome. If this was the answer he was seeking, then what was the point of him coming home? What was the point of him seeing the teacher? Sometimes, one could compromise and compromise. This was the case most of the time. Yes or no, some things had to have an answer. "Do you know why Bai Xiu wanted to kill you?" the teacher asked. "I don't know." Fang Yen shook his head. "I also think it's very strange. I have no conflict with him, and we have no business dealings." "How do you know you have no conflict with him?" "No business dealings?" the teacher asked. "If there is, then it's because of Jiang Junling. Because the Jiang family wanted to kill me, he helped the Jiang family kill me?" "And what about the benefits of Swallow Dock?" the teacher said. "What benefits does Swallow Dock have?" Fang Yen was stunned for a moment. He stared at the teacher with wide eyes and said, "What do you mean, teacher?" The teacher sighed softly and said, "Because I cherish the relationship between master and disciple, I was willing to give him another chance. I didn't expect this chance to lead to such a disaster. So, you can blame me, but I'm not innocent." "What are you trying to say, teacher?" Fang Yen faintly felt that he had grasped something. But he couldn't be sure. "What do you think of your profession?" the teacher asked. "You are very respected," Fang Yen said. "Yes. You are very respected," the teacher said. "What else?" "You can use the red machine," Fang Yen continued. "Yes, you can use the red machine." "What else?" Fang Yen couldn't think of anything else. Apart from being respected, and being able to use the red machine once in a while, you are just a poor teacher in Swallow Dock. "Isn't that so?" the teacher asked Fang Yen. Fang Yen looked at the clothes the teacher was wearing and looked at the simple and crude home. He nodded and said, "It is a bit poor. But, you didn't have to live like this." Would the teacher be short of money? If the teacher wanted money, there would be countless people willing to give it to him. If the teacher wanted women, there would be countless people who would give them to him. It was just that he didn't know if he could use his current body. "You have to live like this," the teacher said with a sigh. "Swallow Dock is a special place. We have the glory passed down from our ancestors, but we also have responsibilities that we have to fulfill for thousands of years." "What kind of existence is the teacher?" "The teacher is the teacher of Swallow Dock, the guide of Swallow Dock, and the suppressor of Swallow Dock. The warriors of Swallow Dock are the weapons of the country and the important weapons of the country. Long knives need sheaths, and treasured swords need sheaths. The sharpness of Swallow Dock also needs someone to cover and hide. It would be bad if they hurt themselves. The teacher is the sheath and sheath of Swallow Dock. He is the lubricant between Swallow Dock and some important people. Such people can only be trapped in Swallow Dock for the rest of their lives. The narrow-minded think that Swallow Dock is very big. The big-hearted think that Swallow Dock is also very small. Some are willing to guard it for the rest of their lives, but some think that Swallow Dock is like a dragon swimming in the water, unable to show off their skills. Bai Xiu is a big-hearted person, so he thinks that Swallow Dock is very small? Fang Yan asked. That's right. The teacher nodded and said. I thought highly of Bai Xiu before because I thought that he was more suitable than you to guard Swallow Dock. This is also the reason why I kept him and rejected you when you both went to apply for the school teacher position. Bai Xiu has talent and wisdom, and he can read and calm his heart. At that time, I hoped that he could take over my mantle and become the next teacher of Swallow Dock. Later, I found out that he was too close with some outside powers, so I wanted to give him a knock. I wanted him to stay true to his heart, to let him know that his roots were in Swallow Dock. So, I found him a competitor. I wanted to tell him that I could choose him, or I could let someone else replace him. That competitor was me? Fang Yan's face was full of surprise. You've never told me about this. The teacher looked at Fang Yan and said, Do you still remember the sword I gave you? That green cloud sword? Fang Yan asked. That green cloud sword, the teacher replied. Chapter 682. Even if he had to hold back his tears, he had to finish the engagement. Even if he had to bleed, he had to bear the consequences. Fang Yan felt that he was a bastard. Why did he have to take advantage of teacher's Qingyun sword? That Qingyun sword. That damned Qingyun sword. What was the use of it? What was the use of it? Just because of that dusty sword, that scrap metal that was left in the corner, Bai Xiu wanted to kill his father and him. Did he want to exterminate his entire family? On New Year's Eve, his uncle was poisoned, his father was buried at the entrance of Swallow's Dock, the ambush at the summit of One Sword Peak. Was Bai Xiu a pervert? Just because of that broken sword, just because of teacher's provocative words, Bai Xiu regarded him as an opponent that had to be eradicated? An enemy that had to be killed? Besides, if you have any problems, just come at me. Why did you have to kill your own father? How could he bear to deal with someone who had nothing to do with him? Thinking of his father's tragic death, thinking of his father's body that had been poisoned by goo insects, Fang Yan's heart convulsed with pain. No wonder he used to hate Bai Xiu so much. It turned out that even before Bai Xiu showed his perverted side, he had already subconsciously thought of him as a pervert. Bai Xiu, Bai Xiu, killing you was too easy. Knowing the truth of the matter, Fang Yan blamed himself in his heart. He shouldn't have killed Bai Xiu. He shouldn't have killed him so easily. He shouldn't have pierced his heart with a sword. He should have tasted the harshest torture in the world. He didn't have the right to die so easily. He couldn't bear to recall the past. Every time he thought about it, it was like a whip to his soul. That Qingyun sword. Fang Yan's mouth was full of bitterness as he said sorrowfully, That Qingyun sword that I asked for from you, why? Why didn't you tell me the purpose of the Qingyun sword's existence? Why didn't you say anything to stop it? Why didn't you take that sword back from my hands? I treated it as a game, why did you also treat it as a game? A game? Mr.'s dim yellow eyes looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully and said, Do you think it's just a game? If it was in the past, I would have treated it as a game. Everyone in Swallow Dock thought it was a game. You and Bai Xiu went to the academy to apply for the position of a teacher at the same time. Do you know why I chose Bai Xiu and rejected you? Because your thinking is jumpy, your personality is unrestrained, and the way you speak and do things don't follow common sense. You're not suitable to be a teacher at the academy, and you're not suitable to be a teacher at Swallow Dock either. So you chose that abnormal disciple of yours? Fang Yan asked with a sneer. Don't make yourself sound so great. It's as if you're not manipulating things behind the scenes. Didn't you choose Bai Xiu because he's your disciple? Mr. looked calm and ignored Fang Yan's mockery. He held the enamel jar in his hand. The tea in the jar had already gone cold. Judging from the qualities and potential that the two of you have shown, Bai Xiu is indeed more suitable than you, Mr. said with certainty. He wasn't trying to defend himself. He just wanted to state a fact to Fang Yan. But because of that incident, you've allowed everyone to see more possibilities. Which incident? The incident of forcing the abdication, Mr. said. The incident of the Maple Leaf Society forcing the abdication. That night, you young people stirred up a huge storm in Yanjing. In the end, I even had to use the red machine, Fang Yan. You must have no idea how amazing your performance was that night. Fang Yan just wanted to curse, *CK your grandma. I just wanted to show off once. I just wanted to trap that pretentious Jiang Junling. I just wanted to please Yi Ro and give the Yi family some gifts. How did I end up getting myself into trouble? Newton was hit by an apple, and as a result, he discovered gravity. Everything in this world is really full of coincidences. Life is like a game of chess. Everyone is playing on the chessboard. If you advance, the enemy will retreat. If you are strong, the enemy will be weak. You were on an insignificant battlefield. At least at that time, it seemed to be nothing more than a romantic occasion. But you were able to decide the outcome with one battle. You gambled yourself, the Fang family, the Yi family, the entire Swallow Fort, and me. You killed the Jiang family and nailed them to the pillar of shame. At that time, I understood your motives and hesitated. But in the end, I couldn't help it. You seem to have calculated the mentality that everyone should have. You knew that I couldn't help it. I knew that it would make you and the Yi family great, but I still couldn't help but help you and push you. It's like there's only one stroke left in a good character. There's only one drop left in a pot of good wine. Who can control it? You are the winner. The Fang family is the winner. The Yi family is also the winner. Even I am a winner. You won easily and it was pleasing to the eye. The Jiang family lost. You lost inexplicably, but you had no choice but to accept it wholeheartedly. I didn't say these words. It was that old man from the Jiang family who called me and said it himself. Fang Yan, you definitely didn't think that the decision you made that night would have such a great influence, did you? You definitely didn't think that the accident would continue to ferment and only display its enormous power and influence several years later, did you? Fang Yan muttered to himself for a long time. He said in a hoarse voice, I didn't think. If I had known it would be like this, I would have chosen to retreat. I would have even apologized. I didn't want to play with them. I couldn't afford to. Fang Yan was speaking from the bottom of his heart. If he had known that this would be the result, if he had known that his father would die tragically as the price, he would have chosen not to provoke Jiang Junling. He would have even been willing to apologize to Jiang Junling. If he could choose again, he would have said, I'm sorry, to him. He hoped that his father would live, and he would become a cowardly filial son. But in the end, you still fell into the trap, Sir said with a sigh. After that incident, countless people went to inquire about you. Even more people began to focus their attention on you. Before that, everyone thought you were still young. Everyone thought you were a playful child. It wasn't until that night that everyone realized that you had grown up. Your existence added many variables to Swallow Fort. It was also from that night that I suddenly had this thought. Perhaps you were more suitable for Swallow Fort than Bai Xiu? I'm not suitable, Fang Yan said bluntly. But Bai Xiu felt that you were suitable. So he listened to you and killed my father? And wanted to kill me as well? I just wanted to give him a warning. I wanted him to know that he wasn't the only choice. I still have you and Fang Yan. A trace of guilt finally appeared on Sir's face. So, when you took the Emerald Cloud Sword, Bai Xiu reminded me if I wanted to get it back. I said no need. Good luck. Since he sent me to the Emerald Cloud Sword, I'll give this sword to you and send you straight to the Emerald Cloud Sword. I thought he would understand what I meant, but I didn't expect him to go to such extremes. I'm responsible for the tragedy that happened later. No matter what, I was the one who set you up. I was the one who pushed you against him, causing him to feel great pressure. But you should know that I've never thought about this. I've never thought about it, Fang Yan said with grief and indignation. I'm a simple person. I just want to live a simple life. I don't like scheming, and I don't want to fight. Everything I want, I have it. It's useless even if you give it to me if I don't want it. I just want the people I care about to be well, without illness or disaster, and for everyone to live well. What if I give you another chance? Sir said. You killed Bai Xiu. You've already used your actions to prove that you're more suitable than Bai Xiu. Now, what's your choice? I refuse, Fang Yan said again. Whether it's in the past or now, whether Sir is a Sir or not, my attitude is still the same. I refuse. The affairs of the world are laughable. Some people view them as treasures, while others discard them like rotten grass. It's a pity that they died, Sir said. But, how can everything go according to one's will while living in this world? Tell me, if I take off this tattered leather coat I'm wearing, who should take over Swallow Dock? What do you mean, Sir? Fang Yan stared at Sir and asked with wide eyes. No matter what, this started because of me. Personally, Bai Xiu is my disciple. My disciple made a mistake, and I, as his master, didn't teach him well. Publicly, I'm the Sir of Swallow Dock. When such an evil thing happened in Swallow Dock, as the Sir, I have to stand up and take responsibility. I have to stand up and seek justice for the villagers. These are all very important things that I have to do. So, I'm no longer suitable to hold the position of Sir of Swallow Dock. But Fang Yan's heart was in a mess. Was this the answer he wanted? Was this the result he wanted? Would it be good or bad for him if Sir were to step down from his position? Would it be good or bad for Swallow Dock? Sir's decision was really hard to see through. You still haven't answered my question. Sir chuckled as he looked at Fang Yan and said, if you were to find someone in Swallow Dock to take over my mantle, who do you think is more suitable? Fang Yan thought for a moment, then said seriously, Yi Daowen. Chapter 683. The Fang Family. In the backyard of the Fang family, Lu Wan was holding an official teacup made after the rain. The Longjing tea in the teacup was already cold. The color of the tea had thickened and the fragrance had diminished. Lu Wan did not bring it to her mouth to take a sip. She looked anxious and kept looking at the entrance of the yard. Fang Hui held the teacup and drank leisurely. He had just eaten one cup and asked his family member Fang Li to add water to the cup. Now he was drinking the second cup of tea. It's rare for Fang Yan to give me this rare roaring Longjing tea because of his filial piety. This tea can't be drunk by ordinary people. I only saved half a caddy of it, and I'm reluctant to give it to others. I'm in a good mood today, so I asked someone to make a cup for you, but you didn't even taste it. Did you just waste this good tea? Fang Hui glanced at Lu Wan and said with some dissatisfaction. Seeing her father-in-law so calm, Lu Wan couldn't help but ask, Dad, will Fang Yan really be okay after being called by Master? No. Fang Hui said indifferently. How many times have I told you that he will be fine? But you don't believe me. What can I do? But, didn't Fang Yan come back this time to seek justice from Master? Fang Yan looks casual, but he has a sense of propriety. If he doesn't agree with Master. It's Fang Yan who went to Master to seek justice, not Master who came to Fang Yan to seek justice. Fang Yan didn't do anything bad. What can happen to him? Fang Hui said indifferently. Believe in Fang Yan and believe in your own son. What Fang Yan can do, we may not be able to do. What Fang Yan can't do, we definitely can't do. Instead of worrying, it's better to sit here and drink tea and chat, waiting for the news from the front to come back. This is Swallow Dock. Nothing big will happen. Lu Wan was not in the mood to drink tea and chat. She said with red eyes, "I don't ask for justice. I just hope that Fang Yen is safe and sound. He called before and said that he would come back, and I wanted to refuse him. However, he said he would come back to see you. I can't possibly reject his filial piety." Fang Hui glanced at Lu Wan and sighed softly. "You've just said that Fang Yen looks casual, but he has a sense of propriety deep down. If he insisted on doing something, who could change his mind? Now that the child had grown up, he needed to make his own path in the future. The only thing we can do is not to cause trouble for him. Don't worry, nothing will happen. I'll go out and take a look." Lu Wan put down the teacup and said aloud. Feng Sheng and the others also followed. "I'll go and see if they have come back." Before he finished speaking, he had already left in a hurry. Old man Fang Hui shook his head with a wry smile and said to the Vajra eagle on the shelf, "Women, their way of thinking is a bit too simple. I can't say that they're wrong, I can only say that they're shallow. How can there be such a simple thing in this world?" He put the empty teacup on the small table in front of him, gently rubbed his thigh with his hand and said, "There should be a result over there, right? Yi family. Yi family's ancestral hall." Yi Daowen placed 3 incense sticks in front of the ancestral tablet, then knelt on the praying mat in front of the offering table and respectfully kowtowed to the ancestral tablet. After kowtowing 3 times, Yi Daowen put his hands together, closed his eyes and mumbled. Dong dong. There was the sound of something hitting the ground. Yi Daowen opened his eyes and turned around to see the old ancestor standing at the entrance of the ancestral hall with a cane. Yi Daowen hurriedly got up and ran over to support the old ancestor, saying, "Old ancestor, why did you come here by yourself? Where are the girls? Where did they run off to play this time? See if I don't break their legs." "Don't scold the girls, I came here on my own," the old ancestor said. She let Yi Daowen support her to sit in front of the ancestral hall's armchair and said, "Close the door. I want to have a few words of understanding with you." Yi Daowen was puzzled, but he still walked over and closed the vermilion door of the ancestral hall. Creak. The ancestral hall immediately fell into darkness. Smoke lingered, and longevity tablets stood in great numbers, looking somewhat eerie and terrifying. Yi Daowen looked at the old ancestor and asked with a smile, "Old ancestor, what do you want to say?" The old ancestor stared at Yi Daowen with a burning gaze. Her pupils were dim yellow, and her face was aged. In this kind of environment and atmosphere, it made people feel especially pressured. The old ancestor stared at Yi Daowen without blinking and said, "Daowen, do you really want that seat under Mister's butt?" "Old ancestor. Answer me, yes or no." "Old ancestor, there are some things that I can't decide alone," Yi Daowen said in a deep voice. "This is everyone's wish. I know, it's your collective decision. There are some things you want to hide from me, and there are some things you can't hide from me. But Daowen, do you think you can replace Mister as Swallow Doc's Mister? Do you think you're worthy?" At the village entrance. The stone tablet of Swallow Doc. Yi Ro looked at the name on the stone tablet with rapt attention. After 100 years of wind and rain, the words on the stone tablet were somewhat blurred, but the name on it had been engraved in the hearts of every Swallow Doc villager. A man should be engraved on a stone to record his merits. This was something that the elders of Swallow Doc often said to their children. Every villager of Swallow Doc wanted to engrave their name on the big stone at the village entrance one day. Originally, Yi Ro had a chance. If she had resolutely swung out that sword, she would have succeeded in breaking through the heavenly Tao, and her name would have been engraved on the stone tablet. Unfortunately, she had let go of such a precious opportunity. "Sister." Yi Fengsheng stood behind Yi Ro and called out carefully, "If we leave just like this, if Mister were to kill Fang Yen, we won't be able to save him in time." Yi Ro finally came back to her senses and found that everyone present was looking at her anxiously. Yi Ro was touched. She knew that these outstanding young men were all Fang Yan's best friends. Her boyfriend's best friend felt proud of Fang Yan for no reason. He'll be fine. Yi Rou said aloud. Mr. won't kill him. If Mr. wanted to kill him, there's no need to wait until now, Yi Daowen. Fang Yan said aloud. Although Yi Daowen was his girlfriend's father, Fang Yan did think that Yi Daowen was the most suitable candidate to be the new Mr. If Mr. really wanted to resign from the position of a Mr. Only a person of virtue and prestige could become the Mr. of Swallow Dock. Yi Daowen was originally a very virtuous elder in Swallow Dock. He was honest and righteous, so he was deeply loved and respected by the villagers. Although his talent was above average and his martial arts were slightly weak, the Yi family was developing rapidly like the sun at noon. This strong backing could make up for some of his personal shortcomings. If he took over Mr.'s mantle and became the new Mr. of Swallow Dock, not only Fang Yan, but the other people in Swallow Dock wouldn't have any objections. Yi Daowen. Mr. chewed on the name, then looked at Fang Yan happily and said, "It seems that Daowen is the most suitable candidate in line with the interests of all parties." Interests? Fang Yan frowned. What interests of all parties? Mr. asked me to choose a candidate, so I said the most suitable person in my heart out of fairness. There are no interests involved in this. Is that so? Mr. stared at Fang Yan with sharp eyes and said, "You really don't know?" "What should I know?" Fang Yan said. Mr.'s expression eased a little and said, "It seems that they didn't discuss this matter with you." "Mr., what do you mean?" Fang Yan asked aloud. Mr. looked at Fang Yan and said, "I know that you chose Yi Daowen out of your heart, but if it's out of selfishness, who do you think is more suitable to be Swallow Dock's Mr.? "I haven't thought about it." Fang Yan said. "You might as well think about it now." Mr. looked at Fang Yan with a sense of exasperation and said, "If Daowen becomes Swallow Dock's Mr., do you think it's still possible for you and that girl from the Yi family? The gap is getting bigger and bigger, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to catch up. But from the standpoint of Swallow Dock, I think Uncle Yi is the most suitable Mr. candidate." Fang Yan said. Chapter 684. Because everyone else had incited Yi Daowen, the teacher had deliberately not chosen Yi Daowen. Other than saying that the teacher was willful, what else could describe such an irrational behavior? Willful? A faint smile appeared on the teacher's face, and he said, "When you live to my age, you can also be as willful as I am." The teacher looked at Fang Yan, and said, "Fang Yan, what do you think?" "I haven't thought about it." Fang Yan shook his head in refusal. "I'm not suitable." "Why not?" "I'm neither virtuous nor prestigious, and I'm still too young." Fang Yan said. He could list out 100 shortcomings that made him unsuitable for the position of teacher, but when faced with his true shortcomings, he was unwilling to admit them in front of others. It was the same as a fatso not willing to tell others that he was a fatso, and he would tell others that he had a bad temper. Therefore, the reasons he gave for his refusal seemed somewhat insignificant. The teacher pointed to where Fang Yan was standing, and said, "At that time, you were also standing here. Do you remember what I told you at that time? Whether you are suitable or not, you can only find out as you go on. You have already led Swallow Dock to take a step forward, so Swallow Dock can no longer retreat and others won't allow us to retreat either. We can only move forward with all our strength. Since you have led Swallow Dock to take the first step, then lead Swallow Dock to continue moving forward. You are duty-bound to carry out this mission. Fang Yan, you are duty-bound to carry out this mission. I told you this a long time ago. At that time, you didn't remember it. This time, no matter what, you must remember it. I still say the same thing, I am not qualified for the position of teacher." Fang Yan said with a serious expression, "No matter who becomes the teacher of Swallow Dock, that person will definitely not be me." The teacher chuckled, and said, "It seems that we are also divided on this issue." "Yes," Fang Yan said. "I know myself, and I know what kind of job I am suitable for. Just like how you felt that I was not suitable back then, I also have the same understanding of myself. We are not divided on this point. The teacher chuckled and said, let's talk about this later. Are you free tomorrow? Tomorrow? Fang Yen looked at the teacher in confusion and said, what plans does the teacher have? I'll take you to meet a few people, Mr. Wang said. They bullied the people of our swallow dock. They have to give us an explanation. So much time has passed, but here. The teacher touched his chest and said, I've never been able to pass through here. Fang Yan's eyes flickered as he said, then I'll have to trouble you, sir. I'll listen to your arrangements tomorrow. Next, I should tell your grandfather that Hu Wei should be waiting in the yard, right? The teacher said, Fang Yan, I'll have to trouble you to go back and pick up your grandfather. Pick up my grandfather? Fang Yan looked confused. The teacher smiled and did not reply. Fang Yan stood in the house for a while, then pushed open the wooden door and walked in. When Fang Yan pushed Fang Hui into the room again, Mr. Fang had already fallen asleep on the rattan chair. He looked very tired, and there was a heavy snore between his breaths. Fang Yan did not speak, but just quietly stood behind his grandfather. Fang Hui glanced at Fang Yan and waved his hand, signaling him to go out first. Fang Yan glanced at the teacher again, and then tiptoed out. The teacher was sleeping soundly, and Fang Hui did not want to disturb him. He was lying on the back of the wheelchair, eyes slightly closed, hands swinging on his thighs, and mouth lightly humming an unknown song. It's taking Tiger Mountain by strategy, the teacher suddenly said. He still did not open his eyes when he spoke. Through the forest sea, across the snowfield, the spirit soars to the sky, expressing lofty sentiments and lofty aspirations, facing the mountains. May the red flag flutter in the 5 continents and the 4 seas, even if it's a sea of fire and a mountain of knives. I can't wait to turn the flying snow into spring water and usher in the spring to change the world, the teacher sang, and Fang Hui echoed. The more they sang, the more passionate they became, and the more energetic they became. When the voice came out of the door, Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, these 2 old men are having a good time. After singing a part, the teacher opened his eyes, glanced at Fang Hui, and said, do you want some tea? I just drank at home, Fang Hui said. I drank 2 bowls. Waiting is torturous, the teacher said. Drinking a bowl of tea to calm the mind is also necessary. The teacher stood up, took a kettle, and filled his big enamel jar with water. He took out a big bowl, threw a handful of big leaf tea at the bottom of the bowl, and then filled it with water, brought it in front of Fang Hui, and said, your legs are not flexible, let me make you a cup of tea. Fang Hui hurriedly took it and said, thank you, sir. This kind of thing should be done by me. I didn't expect a cripple would also take advantage of others. The teacher sat back on his recliner with the enamel jar, looked at Fang Hui, and said, you, cripple, are not simple. It's not simple, sir, Fang Hui replied without raising his head, blowing the big leaf tea on the bowl. Hui, is there a need to do this? The teacher said. Why would I need it? Fang Hui smiled silently. There are many things that I don't think are necessary, but they really happened. We don't feel good in our hearts, but since there is a problem, what we can do is to solve the problem. Sir, don't you think it makes sense? Yes, it makes sense, the teacher said. You have prepared for so long and built up your momentum for so long. Don't you want the position under my butt? Hui, in fact, as long as you say it, I will give it up. I don't care about this position, and I don't want to be a teacher. I was forced to be a teacher by my master. For this position, I put 1 foot in the door of the way of heaven, and then I took it back. As I get older, I think about more problems. Sometimes, I would think about it. Was my choice the right one? Is this what I want? I used to think yes, that's what I want, but now I don't think so. Whether it is or not, in fact, it doesn't matter. I won't ask myself anymore. Asking itself is a kind of questioning of my own choice. Since I have made a choice, I have to stick to it to the end. This is what we should do. We thought that you would give it up, but we also thought that you wouldn't, Feng Hui said with a smile. You are a teacher. If you don't give it up, we can't influence your decision. On the way here, Feng Yan told me that you want him to be a teacher. What ability does that kid have to be valued so much by you? You know better than me what kind of person your grandson is. In front of you, I don't want to praise him again. Lest you, old man, are secretly happy in your heart and say something that you don't mean. Hui, are you determined to tie your Feng family and Yi family together? Feng Hui picked up a big bowl and took a sip of tea. He said, it's not really a tie. It's just some cooperation. I know that nothing can be hidden from you, sir. You didn't try to hide it from me, did you? Sir said with a sarcastic smile. You have been preparing for so long. Didn't you want to give me a fatal blow? Sir took out the Murderer by Xiao scroll that he took from Yi Fengsheng and looked at Feng Hui. How long have you been writing this scroll? The entire Swallow Dock knew that you had written such a piece of calligraphy. Also, when Feng Yan went to the Yi family, smashed the door and broke into the ancestral hall, the Yi family was all bark and no bite. They didn't do anything to Feng Yan. Before Feng Yan returned to Swallow Dock, you had already made sufficient preparations. When Feng Yan returned to Swallow Dock, you pushed him to the teeth of the storm. When everyone was paying attention to Feng Yan, they couldn't help but think that Feng Yan came back to see Sir. When will Feng Yan meet Sir? How will Sir treat Feng Yan? You've portrayed Feng Yan as a hero who wants to avenge his father, and you've portrayed me as a hypocrite who is a hypocrite. If I still don't know your purpose, then I'm not the Sir of Swallow Dock. Some things are designed, and some things are really God's will, Feng Hui said embarrassedly. That child, Ting Wen, forced her way in. Feng Yan was worried about Ting Wen's safety, so he hurriedly ran over. He broke the door and broke into someone else's ancestral hall. The Yi family was also very angry about these things. For this matter, Dao Ling specially asked someone to bring me to his house to discuss for a while. Later, the truth was revealed. Dao Ling went to our house to apologize. I begged the Yi family to stand up and say something at the critical moment. It was a fair and just sentence, and Dao Ling agreed. However, he also put forward his own request. They wanted Dao Wen to become the Sir of Swallow Dock. I felt that this request was not bad for us, so I agreed. Don't you think that the Yi family is too greedy? Sir looked at Feng Hui and said. Feng Hui nodded and said, but Dao Wen is indeed the most suitable candidate. Most of the time, we choose people not only because they are suitable, but also because they are suitable. Sir said in a deep voice, if Yi Dao Wen becomes the Sir of Swallow Dock, at that time, who can stop the crazy development of the Yi family? Chapter 685. Feng Yan didn't want to be Mr. Yi. He didn't want to be like Mr. Yi, who only had one foot in the heavenly Dao realm. After some thought, he pulled back. He didn't want to be like Mr. Yi, who had to work for the country and suffer in Swallow Dock. He didn't want to be like Mr. Yi, who had to protect Swallow Dock for the rest of his life. He didn't want to be like Mr. Yi, who had to carry a manure basket everywhere to shovel feces and become a manure digger. Feng Yan liked peace and freedom. He wanted to see the precipitousness of Mount Tai, and the vastness of the grasslands. He wanted to experience the sunrise of the Red River, and feel the snow on the glaciers. He wanted to go to the deserted North Sea to hunt eagles. He wanted to go to the inaccessible land of extreme cold to find Ice Dragon. He wanted to bring Imo Qingdi back. He wanted to travel all the famous mountains and rivers, and he also wanted to see all the spring flowers and winter snow. He wanted to be free and unrestrained. He wanted to buy a plane ticket and fly to Paris to feed the pigeons when he was bored. He wanted to go to Hengdian to listen to the sound of shooting stars streaking across the sky when he was depressed. He wanted to take Yi Gentle and let Yi Gentle carry the money. They could go on one trip after another whenever they wanted. He didn't want to be Mr. Yi. He only wanted to live for himself. He didn't want to live for others. He didn't want to live for responsibility. If he did that, he would be going against his own conscience. So, when Mr. Yi proposed such a tempting condition, he didn't hesitate to reject the men of Swallow Dock. How many people didn't want to be Mr. Yi? However, Fang Yen was still worried. He knew that his grandfather often thought differently from him. He lived for himself, but his grandfather would add different things to his life, such as glory and responsibility. So, even when Fang Yen waited alone in the courtyard, he still felt uneasy. He heard Mr. Yi and his grandfather singing. They were singing excerpts from Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy. In their eyes, who was Yang Zirong? Who was Mountain Eagle? Now that the singing stopped and there was no sound from inside, it seemed that they had just entered the main topic. The negotiation had indeed entered the main topic, but it was different from Fang Hui's plan. If Yi Daowen becomes the teacher of Swallow Dock, then who will be able to stop the Yi family's crazy development? Hearing Master's words, Fang Hui held the big bowl and smiled silently. He said, how the Yi family will develop and how far it will develop are the problems that Master needs to consider. What does it have to do with a crippled old man like me? Mr. Yi looked at Fang Hui and said, you deliberately tried to ruin my reputation, didn't you? Didn't you want me to give up my position to the Yi family? This happened because of you. How could it have nothing to do with you? Fang Hui sighed and said, I'm only responsible for helping the Yi family get Master's position. As for how the Yi family will develop in the future, I'm not in the mood to study it, nor am I able to find out. So you're saying that you're only responsible for releasing the monsters in the cages, but you're not willing to take any responsibility for the monsters' actions after they're released? In your eyes, the Yi family is a monster? Any unrestrained power is a monster, Mr. said. It's the same for Swallow Dock, but it's locked in a cage. That's why Swallow Dock has Master. Mr. looked at Fang Hui with a playful look and said, it's strange that your Fang family keeps creating opportunities and fighting for benefits for the Yi family. 3 years ago, Fang Yen helped Yi Daoling get his current position. Now he's in charge of Hua Xia's economic lifeline. Now, you, this old fellow, are pushing the waves from behind, wanting to help Yi Daowen obtain the position of Mr. Hui. Do you really think the relationship between the Yi family and the Fang family is unbreakable? Does your Fang family really want to be tied to the Yi family's chariot? What kind of unbreakable relationship is that? I just want to send some betrothal gifts to my grandson. But you should know better than anyone that the more betrothal gifts you send, the lower the possibility of Fang Yen and Wen Raoen. With the Yi family's current development speed, will you still be able to climb up to the Yi family? Mr. said with a smile, it's better to retreat and form a net than to envy the fish in the pool. After all, it's not a wise thing to do for others. Hui is wise. You should understand these principles more clearly than I do. Do you mean you want Fang Yen to be master? Yes. But if Fang Yen becomes master, he will have to tear up with the Yi family. I'm afraid the marriage between the Fang family and the Yi family will be even more impossible, right? Fang Hui reached out and touched the cup. He said with a smile, you're harming me. You're up to no good. If I want to achieve what I want, I need to have enough strength. It's not hard to choose between being a bug that can only follow and respond, or to be a dragon that can contend with the Yi family, right? It's difficult. Fang Hui said with a smile, it's very difficult. Mr. looked at Fang Hui and said, then do you choose to be a worm? Or choose to be a dragon? Naturally, I choose to be a dragon. Fang Hui said, wealth comes from danger. What do you think, Mr.? Mr. smiled and said, Hui, you're too smart. What a pity. The smile on Fang Hui's face slowly disappeared. He looked at Mr. seriously and said, I know what you're feeling sorry about, but if you were me, what would you choose? I'd choose the same as you, Mr. said simply. That's why I said we're both smart people. Fang Hui said, smart people have a hard life. Mr. pointed outside with his finger and said, "You've been doing these things without telling that boy?" Fang Yen is smart and flexible, but he's pure in nature. The things we've done are too dirty. Even if he doesn't say anything, he'll still feel a little uncomfortable. Instead of that, it's better to get things done first. I'm lame and old. I can't help him in other aspects, but I'll help him take the blame and shield him from the dirty water. I'm good at these things. Mr. sighed softly and said, "It's not easy for you." Fang Hui laughed and said, "But I have a good grandson, and you don't." If there was a list of the most annoying people in Swallow Fort, the Fang family's grandfather and grandson would definitely be on it. Old street, old house. Fang Yen sized up the seemingly ordinary but not simple old alley. He looked at Mr. and asked, "What is this place?" On both sides of the alley were courtyards with red walls and gray tiles that looked very old. Some of them still maintained the style of the previous courtyard houses. However, the doors of each courtyard were tightly shut. One couldn't see what was going on inside, let alone know what kind of people lived in the courtyard. The street was narrow, and the middle of the alley could only allow one car to pass. Larger cars couldn't pass at all. There was no flow of people on bicycles, and it was rare to even see people. It was clearly in the downtown area, and the most important center of power in Huaxia was separated by a wall. However, this alley was very quiet, and there was almost no noise. Most importantly, Fang Yen sensed the aura of experts. There were at least 4 experts lying in ambush in the places he knew. There were also some people who were even more secretive. Only after they took action would he know their exact location. "Debt collectors," Mr. said expressionlessly. He reached out to knock on the door. He grabbed the copper buckle in the mouth of the Pihu beast and slapped the door. Pa, pa, pa. After 3 sounds, Mr. took a step back and stood at the bottom of the steps with his back straight. Creak. The wooden door was pulled open from the inside, and a tall woman appeared at the door. The woman bowed to Mr. and said, "Mr. Master knows you are coming today. He has already prepared good tea and has been waiting for you for a long time." Mr. nodded and raised his foot to enter the door. Only then did the woman's gaze fall on Fang Yan's face. She said with a smile, "Handsome boy, we haven't seen each other for a long time." Fang Yan looked at the woman in camouflage clothes and said, "Tigress, I haven't seen you for some time." The woman was the eagle herding in the sky and the tigress on the ground. Fang Yan knew that she was Jiang Junling's subordinate. The two of them had interacted before. However, he didn't expect to see her again here. Fang Yan looked at the tigress and sized up the old house in front of him. He said with a smile, "Is this the general's house?" The tigress also smiled. The woman's facial features were very beautiful. Because her chest was too large, she gave off a very strong feeling. However, when she smiled, there was a strange kind of sexiness. Conquering such a woman was also a good challenge for many men. "You stood at the door and came to ask for a debt. I don't know where you went. What if you were sold?" The tigress squinted her eyes and joked with Fang Yan. She moved her body to the side and made a gesture of invitation. "That depends on whether you can sell it for a good price." Fang Yan said, "If the price is right, I can also get a share of the benefits. If you want to sell it, then so be it. Big sister can't bear to sell you." The tigress said with a smile. "You are a man that I rarely see that makes my heart beat." Fang Yan followed behind Mr. and walked towards the backyard of the small courtyard. The front yard wasn't big, but the backyard wasn't small. There were a lot of flowers and plants in the backyard, and there were also some fresh vegetables. There was a grape tree under the eaves of the porch. The vine of the grape tree climbed everywhere, covering half of the sky in the small courtyard. It blocked the sunlight outside, making the small courtyard look a little gloomy. Winter had arrived in Yanjing, and the weather was a little chilly. The vegetables were growing green, and the flowers were blooming beautifully. It was a comfortable and beautiful countryside. In a chives field, an old man wearing a straw hat was using a sickle to cut chives. Hearing the footsteps behind him, the old man adjusted his straw hat and looked over. He said to Mr. You came at the right time. I'll make chives dumplings for you tonight. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.